Hey, welcome everybody to the Is Feminism Necessary to Invoke Change After Show that was just had on the NonSequitur Show. The link is in the video description, or if not, it will be in a few minutes. Please let me know if the audio is good. This was a last minute stream setup that I had to do. Yes, I know that my video is a little wonky. I'm way down here in the corner next to the NS logo. Hey, people down here. But we do have Nate, we do have Odeon, we have Jade. Kyle had a quick friend's emergency he's got to go take care of. He'll be back in maybe about 10 or 15 minutes, but we wanted to start and get it going anyways, kind of get people's opinions on what they thought of the ideology show with Casey and Kyle. So we're just going to jump right into it. Do you guys want me to lead off a little bit about what I thought about your guys' discussion, Nate, or do you guys?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, because I watched the whole thing, so for like 5 minutes I had to go away for a few minutes. But I got to tell you right off the bat that it was an honest discussion, and I thought it was a very fair, well-balanced discussion between two people that I think had misconceptions about certain things. Right? Obviously, I think she had misconceptions about your particular channel, and she got that just by gleaning what your videos are about by your thumbnails and probably the comments that she read. Right? And of course, I think we all kind of do certain things like that. I'm guilty of that as well. I've looked at different channels and I'll go, this is probably not a channel that I want to watch. And again, I have limited amount of time to watch things. I got bucket lists of things. I go through the weekend report that Goddess Highwind puts out, and of course, he has a lot of videos, and they're on my bucket list to watch. So if I see something that I'm not really that interested in, I probably won't watch, but I'll get an opinion, and I think that's what she did. And the fact that you came out and you said you're a feminist, that kind of just said it all, right? I mean, you seem to agree with a lot of feminism things, but you do point out some of the more radicalized version of feminism, some of the more comical versions, right?
I think the problem is that people will hear you say one political view. They'll say that, you're against this element of feminism or you're against this element of, anything you can think of. And they'll, attribute to you different beliefs that that aren't actually true. They'll assume that you believe other things. So, for example, if you say that you're pro-gun, they might assume that you're a conservative. They might assume you're also pro-life, for example. But you shouldn't assume those things. You should actually talk to them directly to make sure that what you're saying about them is accurate.
Right, and that's why I think there's something that beneficial that came out of this particular discussion. I try to discuss things with her a little bit on Twitter, although Twitter is generally, as we all know, a dumpster fire. But I do think there's different feminist waves. She actually went through them, and I do agree with her assessment of them. They're exactly how I view those waves as well. One deals with mostly voting rights and suffrages and suffragets, and then the second wave is more the sexual revolution, and there's third, fourth, fifth waves. But she didn't seem to realize though that I appreciate what you do by pointing out the radical side of things, right? And that shows that you don't subscribe to tribalism. Same thing I do with atheists, agnostics, non-believers, theists. Doesn't matter. Try to hold everybody accountable for what they say. And so, if there's a radicalized movement of militant atheists out there, or militant non-believers, yeah, I'm going to make fun of them in certain ways as well for the same reasons, right? And of course, if that gets views out of it, that's great. I mean, I hate to say it, but most of us do this for views in some ways. I mean, why would we not want to put our commentary out there or be involved in any of this if we don't want people watching?
Yeah, exactly. I really hate that attack people usually say, oh, you're just doing this for views. Like, no shit. Of course I'm doing this for views because that is the point of putting stuff online. It's called broadcast yourself for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you spend hours talking about something if you thought nobody was going to listen to it? It just
I
makes
don't
no
know. I guess if
sense.
you're terribly bored and you have nothing better to do, but yeah.
Well, unless that or you're Nephilim
That's
free.
Nephilim free.
Exactly.
hmm
Yeah, he can go. This man can go probably 4 hours solid and literally not say a goddamn thing, and he gets like, I've seen him hit like 12 one time not too long ago.
12 views.
12 viewers
Wasn't
live.
Nephilim Free kind of a big deal back in like '08?
Yeah, he had his day. Now, I mean, what happened was Nephilim Free is not a smart person. I mean, just going to throw that out there. He's not. He's not a smart person. And by the way, Holy Kool-Aid, I am getting you the link. I'm just really slow right now, so hold tight. But Nephilim Free is not a smart person, and he couldn't figure out how to actually stream properly. Now, I admit it was difficult for me to figure out as well. So I'm not saying that it was easy. It's not. But I did eventually figure it out because I took the time to do so. He just couldn't do it for about a year, and he was offline for literally a year. Then I told him I would help him out, but before I did, Other people would ask him as well. Do you want to sit down for me an hour and explain how to do this? Well, a lot of them were atheist, right? And in his mind's eye, he thought that they were trying to sabotage his channel, right?
Hmm.
So he wouldn't allow them to do it. And he knew me for quite some time. I mean, we've had some embroiled fights for ages, but he knew that I was an honest person. I mean, he'll say that I lie and bullshit like that, like any radicalized creationist will do. But the reality is, he knows that I haven't, and he knows that I'm trustworthy. And so I did show him how to get back online. So now he's restreaming again, and sorry guys, blame me that he's back on the air for those 12 people that actually do listen to him.
Now, while Nephilim Free specifically isn't much of a concern, nobody cares what he's saying anymore. Do you think that there's a risk right now in the atheist community of there being more of a religious uprising because of people like Jordan Peterson and others?
Jordan Peterson, perhaps. I mean, obviously, Nephilim Free is irrelevant. He has been for a very long time. In fact, he wasn't even relevant when he was relevant. Most of what Nephilim Free was about was just, you know, putting forth this young Earth creation narrative that we had already debunked and been mocked for ages. Now, he's been around a lot longer than I am. I've had my channel for 5 years, and I've only been really active in making videos for maybe two plus, I guess. I don't know, but yeah, Jordan Peterson is one of those guys that is a mixture of Deepak Chopra and Freud kind of thing, right? I mean, some of the stuff he says is legit, not going to front, but he takes it to a weird narrative that I don't get, and maybe that's because I'm not woke enough.
Well, I will say that I've watched a few of Peterson's different lectures online, and I do think that he gives some decent advice here and there when it comes to how to improve your life. You know, clean your room, Bucko. He does more than that, but that's like his kind of his little shtick now. But there's so much baggage that comes along with Peterson, his apologism for religion, his kind of archaic views on male and female relationships. So if you want to get self-help advice, I mean, he's not the only person saying this kind of information. So but I get why people surround him because he was the one who tackled that one, gender
Hmm.
controversy happening in Canada with the colleges and saying your pronouns and stuff, and that's blown out of proportion, I think, personally. But that's kind of his claim to fame now.
That's what put him on the map for sure. Um, yeah, I agree. I mean, he has a lot of like, oh, I don't know, models and tropes that he throws out there.
Hmm.
As PZ Myers says, he's not a biologist, and he throws his ring into this whole lobster neurology thing, just because that he reads a study on antidepressants and thinks that for some reason that lobsters have the same kind of neurological responses to antidepressants as humans would. Yet, from what I understand, most biologists I've talked to would think that lobsters don't even have a centralized brain of some sort. I mean, they have a nervous system, of course, but their brain is not really what we would consider to be a brain per se. Now,
It's kind of a false equivalence to compare us to lobsters in the way that Peterson does, you might say.
yeah, I mean, he tries to make it into a social thing too, and again, I don't see the point. I don't know where he goes with that, to be honest with you.
Well, one of the best people I've seen tackle Jordan Peterson's content is Rationality Rules. He's made like 8 videos, I think, on Jordan Peterson. He does it in a very, concise, eloquent manner that makes it very obvious why Peterson is wrong about certain topics. So I wish we would see more people in the atheist community do content like Rationality Rules does, or even people like GM Skeptic have made some good content debunking his claims. So more of that is important because I feel like the debate has shifted regarding religion, where before it was about, what is the proof for God? That's kind of a dead topic now. Now it's more about what is the utility for God. And we, as the atheist community, have to prove that there is no necessity for religion to make society thrive.
Yeah, no, but see, I'm not totally against Jordan's argument, and I know Friended Forever, he uses this argument quite frequently, and I know a lot of the atheists don't like him for it. But his argument isn't exactly something that's fallacious. I mean, there is something to be said by what's called memes and these things that are promoted by evolution that are not genetically related, right? They're social things, social constructs. Now, do I think that's an advantageous reason to have religion because of evolutionary things? Probably not. I don't
I
know,
mean, not
but
everything evolutionary is necessarily a positive thing for people.
and that's true.
There's
That in fact, there's neutral evolution. A lot of people don't understand that there are traits that are promoted that are neutral, that are not positive things. So there's a lot to be added to that. So it's nothing that I think that is completely outlandish, but the way he promotes it, I think it is. He's using it as I don't like his conclusion. I don't like the way Friended Forever uses it to get a conclusion that we have to have religion for some reason.
It's kind of an appeal to nature in a way. It's natural to be religious, so therefore you should be religious.
It is. It absolutely is. Hey, we got Thomas Westbrook in here,
What's
Mr.
up,
Holy
guys?
Cooling himself. Been a while. Been a day, dude.
Yeah, it's been a while. I've had a million side projects, but I'm getting back in the swing of things. So expect to see me.
Awesome.
You guys you were talking about not enough people addressing Jordan Peterson,
Yeah.
and he's starting to be on people's radar a lot. There's the rationality rules thing you mentioned, GM Skeptic, but also Dillahunty had a debate. I know Sam Harris has done some stuff, taking him on. And I'm actually in the process of making a video where a while back I revived Christopher Hitchens in cartoon form to take on Dennis Prager, and
Ooh.
I'm gonna do that to take on Jordan Peterson too. So it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, and
So,
I'm a huge fan of Rationality Rules. I mean, I've told Rationality Rules many times that of all the people that I listen to that talks philosophy, I think he has, beyond an actual philosopher, of course, I think he has the greatest handle on philosophy that I've ever seen. I mean, he just literally knows his shit inside and out, and he's very impressive to listen to and talk to.
have you seen his discussion with Cosmic Skeptic and also Rachel Oates about I think they're talking about nihilism, and they're also talking about veganism in different
I've watched
discussions.
all the garden stuff. Yeah.
It's amazing how much depth they can go into. I mean, a lot of that is not really my cup of tea because I prefer to talk more about hard science and not delve into this like philosophical element of it. But still, it is interesting to listen to.
And I try to listen to the Here and How podcast, which
Hmm.
Holy Kool-Aid can talk about for a second if you like.
Oh, well, yeah, it's with Rachel Oates and Rationality Rules, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. Try to explore big ideas together.
He does a podcast with Rationality Rules.
I think I've seen. Is that the one where they have the NASA rocket at the beginning in the intro and little cool intro? Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember watching a bit of the one about advertising. That was interesting.
Cool.
Welcome, Kyle. Everything good? Everything copacetic?
Yeah,
You got that
finally.
got that little issue taken care of?
He was drunk. So I got him home safely and soundly.
Awesome. You're a
Yeah.
good friend.
What did I miss?
We're
we
talking
about it?
mainly about Jordan Peterson right now and how different atheists are beginning to focus more attention on him.
Are you a fan of Jordan Peterson?
Me, well, I said earlier that I do think that he has some decent advice here and there about how to improve your life, how to focus on reaching certain goals. But there's so much baggage that comes along with him. Again, very like archaic, you might say, patriarchal views on relationships. He has promoted religion on many occasions. In fact, recently he shared a video from Prager University, which was some climate change denialism type stuff. So there's a lot of baggage. I don't think that he is going to be an ally of the atheist movement.
Yeah, I agree. He's got some good points that he makes, but overall, I think he just his views. Like if people haven't seen him and Matt Dillahunty talk, I think that Matt has done the best job I've seen with people having discussions with him of really just highlighting where he's fundamentally wrong on certain aspects. I think Matt really handled him well.
Matt's discussion was great.
I remember I shared a little clip on Twitter recently, and it was about how Jordan Peterson will attack the SJWs for attributing, beliefs to people that aren't actually true. And yet Jordan Peterson in his Matt Dillahunty conversation will say that essentially you're not actually an atheist, you just think you are. So he does the same thing. He attacks people for doing.
Oh yeah, and in fact, it was Ozzy that asked him that question. What do you think it actually entails to be an atheist? And of course, he goes into Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment and all. And it's like, well, no, that's. I don't think I've never met an atheist who would ascribe the conditions to be an atheist by Dostoevsky's version of what he would consider to be an atheist.
It feels like he uses like deliberately vague language to make what he's saying almost unfalsifiable.
In some ways, yeah, I totally agree with that. Absolutely.
Let me just say,
he tries to have. Go ahead, Kyle.
No, go ahead. Mine's completely off topic, so you go.
No, I was just gonna say Peterson tries to have his cake and eat it too. He'll give one definition for something while straddling a second, and it allows him to, by being intentionally obtuse and vague about his definitions, he can straddle back and forth between the two of them while never being pinned down.
Yep.
And so, if any of you ever have a chance to debate him, make sure that you get him to define his terms, or else he's he's slimy.
That's called the fallacy of equivocation, correct?
Well, equivocation is when you're using a word two different ways in the same type of argument. That's equivocation.
So isn't that kind of what Peterson does, though, when it comes to atheism or religion?
No, I think I think he tried to conjoins multiple topics together and then kind of switches between them depending on what his best avenue to go is.
Yeah.
Well, an example of that is he'll put forth Christianity or the Judeo-Christian values as necessary for having any kind of moral structure in society or moral fabric. But when you try to pin him down on whether or not he actually believes it, he will say that he does and kind of identify as a Christian in some weird almost kind of a like his definition. He'll say like, oh, I don't actually believe in a physical Christ. I don't necessarily believe in, I'm agnostic on the existence of, a physical Jesus. It's like, well, then what the hell are you? Like, if you don't even adhere to the Nicene Creed.
Well, we've had people do that. We'll be like, I've had people actually say, well, yeah, I totally agree that Christ rose from the dead, and I believe everything Christ says, and I believe in the New Testament and the Old Testament, but and I follow Christ, but I'm not a Christian. I don't take that label. Okay, we're talking about labels here, but then what do you think you are then? Because they don't want this. Well, they don't want the baggage that comes along with it.
God believer,
but sort of. But well, I think Brett Keane has done it before, and so did another guy. What was his name? He does it all the time. I can't remember his name. But basically, the reason they do that is because when you run an argument about being something against Christianity, then they just throw out there, well, I'm not actually Christian, because they're not taking that label. It's a dishonest tactic.
But you could argue that his type of rhetoric is appealing to the Christian side, though.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah, without taking on the label.
Yep.
Well, it's like people who say like, oh, I'm not religious either. I just have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. It's like, God damn, motherfucker, of course you're religious if you believe in like a religious character that like has supernatural godlike powers. Like, you can't skirt around.
It's a lot of word game playing, and I kind of detest that. And it's funny when people accuse me of playing word games. It's like you really have never listened to what I've talked about then, because I'm the one actually showing a lot of times when people are doing word games, and that's what irritates me.
They want to take out the bad. They do that because I think they don't want to own the bad part of the Bible, or the parts that often get highlighted as like when we talk about slavery, rape, anti-homosexual. I think they take on that by saying, I follow what Christ says, by not specifically taking on those because the same thing happens with a lot of people who say, I believe in God and I believe the Bible, but not the Old Testament, or the Old Testament is something that you don't have to adhere to, like it never happened. They just
Kyle, those are just like the typical atheist talking points, though.
But
yeah,
it's like, who do they think?
For a reason. They're talking points for a specific reason, because they're effective and they're accurate.
Yeah, not all talking points are bad, right?
No, I was referencing my previous discussion with that one Christian guy we had on before.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, I remember now. Yeah, that's true.
It's like, who do they think wrote the Old Testament? The same God who says that he's never changing, yesterday, today, and forever. Like,
right.
You can't say, oh, I'm not a Stalinist, I just have a personal relationship with Joseph Stalin. It's if God is responsible for the Old Testament and the atrocities in the Old Testament, he's the same God, he's the same criminal character, real or imaginary, who has perpetrated all these horrific things. So if you have a personal, close relationship, loving relationship, where you just are basically deep throating on God's testicles, then you can't you cannot separate the evil that he's responsible for out of your relationship and just sweep it under the rug.
That's a great image right there. Somebody deep throating on.
It's very evident that Peterson is not comfortable, admitting his true feelings about religion. Have you ever seen the clip of him talking? There was some British journalist, I believe, who asked him the question, "Are you a Christian?" And there was this really awkward pause, and he's like, "I don't want to answer that question. I don't want you to box me in." It's like how can you? It's a very straightforward question. I think that everybody, when they hear the word Christian, they have a very basic idea in their head of what that entails, but he doesn't want to answer it or try to define what it means for him personally. He just kind of wants to dance around the question entirely.
And the weirdest part is that Christians who do that, people should point out that they're denying Christ. I mean, literally, by not taking upon the name, they could be charged if Christ, was legit, and Christ looked at him and said, "Hey, you denied me, just like Judas denied me 3 times. I now deny you in front of the Father." But nobody ever points them out to them.
The thing is, like the one question I would like answered and you never hear a coherent explanation of what to me is the biggest end that can't be wrapped up in the Bible, and that is the Trinity. Like, are these gods the same thing? Is it the God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit? And if they are the same person, how do you explain, like, him having to go down, die on the cross, to sacrifice himself to himself, and then he's talking to himself on the cross, like when he says, "Forgive them, Father; they know not what they do." Is he talking to himself?
Well, he apparently forsook himself.
Well, the
Exactly.
anti-Trinitarian would say no. They're actually different entities with one purpose.
So then Christianity is polytheist.
Henotheist.
What?
Henotheism,
What does that mean?
or what's called monolateralism. Basically, there's acknowledgement of multiple deities, with the worship of specifically one. In this case, it would be God the Father. Some people don't actually think they worship Jesus personally. Like the Catholics they won't pray to Jesus directly. They pray to God the Father in the name of an what do they call it?
It makes no sense.
Accessory, a person who advocates on their behalf, right?
It makes zero sense.
Intercessory, is that what it's called?
Yeah, they'll say that he intercedes on their behalf.
Yeah.
But oftentimes, like, I was always taught that they're one and the same thing. Just like you can be both an uncle and a father at the same time.
For
apparently,
Trinity,
God can be his own son.
Yeah, for a Trinitarian, right? For an anti-Trinitarian, then no.
But that's my question. And then you have modalists who believe that they are, separate entities. Like, that's the big thing that Steven Anderson got hooked on with a guy that he, like, ordained himself. He went to go preach at a church that Steven Anderson is associated with for a year. That's all Steven Anderson did is, like, praise him or whatever. And then finds out that the guy believes they're three separate entities. So he went on this, like, oh, he's a heretic thing. Like, who... you have all of these different religions or different denominations of religions. Which one's correct in this? And how do they square that?
As long as it's a voting block, then they'll all agree that all of them are right. But as soon as they start breaking down on, ideological differences, then yeah, they're at each other's throats.
But like Thomas, you could be your own uncle and father, but you can't be your own son.
Well, yeah.
So.
But God, with him, all things are possible. He did,
except for well, hang on, except for logical
That's
contradictions, Oposit, right? A theist will say that God can do all things except do logical contradictions.
But he's outside space and time, so he can go back in time and impregnate his own mom.
Again, depending on the type of version. For a classical theist, then no. For theistic what's called theistic personalism, then yeah.
This is why I find the whole objective morality thing so ironic, because these people, all these different denominations will claim that there's objective morality, yet even between each other, they can't define what that objective morality is.
Right.
No. So basically how it's set up is that they define objective morality as morality that simply comes from God, and whatever God deems as moral, our morality should be based on that. So it doesn't matter what we think is right or wrong. It's all what really matters is what God thinks.
But if you were to put every Christian on earth into a room together and ask them, what is the objective moral stance of God on homosexuality, you would get dozens of different answers. Some would say they should be burned alive. They shouldn't exist. Some would say, hate the sin, not the sinner. Some would say, those are irrelevant verses now. Forget about them. So even among themselves, what is the objective morality here?
But that wouldn't matter.
A very, very well-known guy on here who is a Christian apologist, very respected, I think, amongst apologists here on YouTube, that says that Jesus actually spoke in favor of homosexuality. Like, some of the verses can be shown to show that Jesus was actually on their side.
Sure.
Now, do you know which verses those would be? Do you have them?
We can get a hold of them. Yeah, I know there's a couple people that do that.
Let me find out.
But Nate, that wouldn't matter though. Here's the way it works with objective morality. A person who subscribes to objective morality would just say those people were mistaken. That's all. Now the problem with objective morality, when you frame it with divine command theory, is that divine command theory is a form of what's called ethical subjectivism, because it is contingent upon the mind of God. Okay, which is an individual, which is subjective. So there's different ways of looking at the principle of divine command theorism. Theory is that even though it is subjective from God, Odian, or somebody that would follow divine command theory, I don't know if he does, would say that, okay, yes, it is
No.
subjective upon the mind of God, but to us, it's an objective moral framework. And if somebody doesn't think that the passage is reading it that way, they're just incorrect. That's all that they would say. So even though there's diversification among opinions, right, you obviously have descriptive moral relativism and things of one culture has one thing, another culture another thing. So those things all exist. But to an objective moral framework, they would just say, you know what, yeah, that person's wrong.
That verse is Matthew 19:12. It says, "For there are eunuchs who were born that way, and there are those who have been made eunuchs by others, and then there are those who choose to live like eunuchs for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Those who can accept this should accept this." And he argues that that can be interchanged for homosexuality. Basically, saying that there are people who are born that way, those who choose to be that way, and that everybody should accept it.
But eunuch implies that they don't have any testicles or
Right.
penis, right? So how does
Right.
that entail the same thing as being homosexuality?
I don't know. Like I said, I don't see it, but nonetheless, like that's the problem with the Bible. I think that it's open to anybody's interpretation for anything. So that's why you get so many denominations, is because people can look at the same verse and get 3 different ways to go about it. I think that's where it's
So in that particular verse, the reason why the example, the eunuch was just an example. So the idea is that, God creates everyone, and even the people who are homosexual, because you can look at it as this way, right? A typical Christian would say, God hates homosexuals, right? But then you turn around and he'll admit and say, well, God created everyone. It's like, why would God create people who he hates, since he's an all-loving God? And so you run into all of those like weird contradictions, right? And so if I will fully admit that there's a lot of things that are attached to God that aren't said about God in the Bible, right? With like a lot of Christians, they tend to attach these various attributes to God, right? Mainly due to, glorification or whatever, right? Or as a way or means to justify their view or their interpretation of the Bible.
But you do agree, Odin, that certain people will use passages to their own advantage, and the
Oh,
problem
yeah.
is the reality is, and this is the fact, there's no way to actually ask God what the fuck he meant, or ask the writers that supposedly
when
had
Soul Phone
revelation.
comes out, there will be.
Yeah, then maybe I don't know. Is that, you know what? That'd be like the super high platinum package, right? Talk not only to your dead relatives, but talk to God.
By the way,
Let's
guys,
do
that has been a big announcement. That has been actually scheduled for the 4th now. So Soul Phone will be
October,
happening. In October. I finally talked him into to coming on. So we will have Soul Phone on October the 4th. Have you guys heard of Soul Phone?
I have not.
I have not.
Oh, let me enlighten you then. Okay, so there is this there's this group of I don't know what you would call them, engineers, I guess, but they've created this new invention, actually 4 new inventions, and they're PhDs. Actually, Steve knows of one of them, so they're credible on one end. Not with this, but on one end they're credible. What's the guy's name, Steve?
The lead for PhD. Give me a second. I'm gonna have to look it up. I don't. Remember.
Find that.
I know
but
who
anyway,
he is, but I forgot his name.
Basically, what it is they have 4 different ways that you can communicate with people who have passed on to the afterlife.
Dr. Gary Schwartz.
Sounds legit.
Dr. Schwartz is his name. Dr. Gary Schwartz.
Dr. Schwartz. Yeah.
Have any studies been done on their product or whatever they're marketing?
I'm getting there. Let me just tell you what the products are first. Okay, so the first product is called Soul Switch, and Soul Switch is a yes or no switch that you can dial in and ask whoever you want to a question. They'll be able to answer you yes or no. Soul Keyboard is a thing that they announce is a way that you can like text your loved one. You can ask them questions, send it over, and they'll text you back. Soul Phone is where you can actually call the person who has passed on, and Soul Video is their premium package where you can actually have a Skype conversation with the person who has passed on to the afterlife.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
When you call in, does the person who answers the phone sound like tech support in Pakistan?
I hope
I'm sorry, you reached the wrong number. No, what happens
My-
what happens the first time somebody asks, "Hey, motherfucker, what'd you do with the will?"
So
My
Soul
first-
Switch is kind of like a magic 8-ball.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
It's
But-
mediumship. It's high tech mediumship. It's 21st
But see,
century
let me tell you
mediumship.
the long. Let me explain the long rocky road that we've had with cell phones. So I emailed him first back in March, and he said, yeah, we well, first he was like, let me see your analytics for your channel because we're only choosing 5 different places to go and advertise, and we want to make sure that it'll be in front of a decent sized audience. And so I was like, okay, well, that counts us out because like we weren't that big, and we're still not that big.
We had like
but,
10,000 at the time.
Yeah, it was I didn't think we had a shot because I'm sure everybody would like to jump on this train, but he finally emailed back and he said, okay, we'll do this. So he then sent me a message the day before we were supposed to have the actual show, and he said that his wife's stepfather had passed away, and so he wouldn't be able to make the show. And I wanted to email him back and say, well, why don't you just come on the show and call him? That'll be a great demonstration for for the show and the product. So we moved it back, and then the week before we were supposed to do the next show, he emails me and says we had a huge breakthrough with Soul Video, something epic. We're having to push back all of our media appearances because this is just a game changer. So I was like, oh, okay, great.
So bigger than Talking to the Dead. What's bigger than Talking to the Dead? Did they get a hold of a demon or something?
Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
I don't know what he's going to do when he comes on the 4th. And I fully expect him, just to let you guys know, I fully expect there to be another issue like a week before the show. I tried to explain to him this is the last time we're going to reach out and try to pursue this without letting him know that we're going to nail his ass to the wall when he comes on here.
Okay, but come on, a minute.
They can make a soul phone, but they can't schedule a podcast time properly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Dude, admit it.
My thing is it seems like you'd want to get this out. And the most egregious thing that he does is he attaches to each email. This is a community. There's a community of these people, and what he's trying to do is set up groups in each city of people who buy into this stuff. That he doesn't tie it to religion. That's the funny thing. He doesn't believe in religion. He believes that you have a spirit, and when you die, your spirit goes up into this other realm where you get to decide if you want to come back, so you get put into another body, or you just want to remain in the spirit world. It's completely up to you. And he thinks he's found a way to tap into that other side, and those who choose to stay can be communicated with.
Now, you mentioned as a PhD. What is his PhD in, though?
I think it was
Truthology.
No, I think it was either psychology or electrical engineering. I don't remember. But come on, wouldn't it be cool though if they open it up this dimension to Hellraiser world, and Pinhead comes out and these Cenobites come out?
Cool
come on,
who?
I don't know. It'd be kind of cool. I wouldn't be around, but it would be pretty cool.
You know what this reminds me of is do you guys remember who was the medium that kept on predicting that people were dead when they were still alive, who'd been kidnapped, and James Randi went on and debunked her, and he kept on telling her to come on his show, and she's like, oh yeah, I'll come on, I'll prove my abilities, but every single time she would chicken out.
Sylvia Brown.
Yeah, Sylvia Brown, but she you know what, she died, so maybe they can try to reach out to her. And by the way, Dr. Schwartz is a professor of psychology. That's what I thought. Psychology and neurology.
And Mark Pitsack is the other one. Now, Mark Pitsack's the guy that's coming on. That's the guy that I've been talking to, and he has a medical degree and he's got a pre-medical degree and a graduate in counseling studies, a master's in clinical psychology, and a doctor in chiropractic health. So you're not dealing with people who are idiots.
They're educated.
Yeah.
Well, from what I've heard, people that are very intelligent, even if they believe in the false information, they can find ways to rationalize in their mind why that information is still correct.
Sure,
Certainly.
but my problem is how do you rationalize with yourself telling somebody that you can have a Skype conversation with somebody that's passed on? That's something that it doesn't matter how batshit crazy you are, you can't square that because you have to produce that. You know what I mean? You have to actually be able to physically produce somebody having a Skype conversation with somebody that's passed on, or that you're full of shit. You know what I mean? They know that they're being deceptive at that point. It's not something that they've just got in their head, and this is where me and Steve differ on this.
Yeah, it's a possibility that they could be totally deceptive.
Wait,
they could
what
be
do you mean?
thinking, this is easy cash.
Well, again, I don't want to throw out there that they're actually purposely trying to deceive people. They might have deceived themselves because there's a thing called a shut eye, where it's a person who thinks they're actually psychic because of all the psychic stuff they've supposedly done, even though they start off knowing that it was bullshit, right?
Yeah, but
they
you
were
can't
frauds.
tangibly produce that. You have to be able to tangibly put
I know
somebody
that,
on
but to
on
say
a
that they're
call.
lying means that they actually knowing they lie. A shut eye doesn't know that they're lying. They actually convince themselves
Come on,
the shit's
Steve.
real.
You have to know you're lying when you say I'm going to put your grandma on Skype.
I'm telling Wes, Holy Kool-Aid, you've investigated paranormal stuff. You know what a shut eye is, clearly.
Yeah, well, but there's a big difference between someone who is reading palms and kind of going with the playbook and doesn't realize that the people who they're telling about their dead relatives are actually just flipping out over Barnum statements, and someone who thinks that they have technology that allows you to actually talk with a dead relative.
People can
Like,
deceive themselves in a lot of ways, though, man.
I
I mean, it's
don't know.
clearly a scam either way. We all agree. I mean, that's a given. But
I've also, I don't know if you've seen my my psychic videos where I've like
yeah,
investigated
of course.
like John
Wait,
Edwards.
who are
and
you
Truth
again?
and
What channel you got?
And-
Who are you?
But
Yes,
so
watch
when
your
I was
stuff.
when I was sifting through that stuff, what I started to see was pattern after pattern after pattern of like these guys. They're taking high statistical probability names and guessing, and it's things that you don't just come about randomly. Like it's very clearly that they're con artists
Right.
because
Well, I agree with some of them.
they're
Yeah,
using
they're con artists, yeah.
mentalism tricks.
Well, I agree. Look at when you talk about John Edwards and you're talking about Von Prague and you're talking about Sylvia Brand and you're talking about who's the other one any of those mediums, right?
Miss Cleo.
Oh yeah, all of them I believe know that they're full of shit. Every one of them. Okay, but that doesn't mean that there's certain people like this person like Dr. Gary Schwartz. I don't know if he actually realizes that it's bullshit. Right? They may have convinced him. Right? They may have
You
said.
have to know though, because you
I
you have
don't.
to
I
put
don't think,
somebody on
dude.
Skype.
You don't. I've dealt with people like this, and I'm sick. We all have that are just so self-deluded. They actually do believe it.
You
know?
can't
Are
be
you
that
familiar
self-deluded,
with-
though.
with- are
You
you
can't be
familiar
that
with
self-deluded. You can never.
I
be
don't
that
know. Maybe you're right. I'm trying to give him the guy the benefit of the doubt. I mean, either way, he's got to be
clearly
called out.
deceiving people. You
Because
clearly can't put
I
somebody
don't make
on-
those kind
on
of
Skype called
judgments
a
without
scam.
having evidence.
You can't do it.
I'm actually a skeptic, in that
Are
way,
you
right?
guys
So
familiar
I do
with a
believe in
guy called-
skepticism. You can't just you can't do hasty generalizations. That's a fallacy. I'm sorry. It
That's
just
not a
is.
generalization.
It is a generalization.
Steve.
I
My
think
definition is a
you're
hasty
trying to-
Can you
generation.
physically put somebody that's dead on Skype? Is that possible?
No, of course not.
Okay, so we know that's
That
not
doesn't mean they
possible.
may not believe it, though. Beliefs are. You can have false beliefs. There are people that have false beliefs.
Oh, this is frustrating.
Why is this frustrating?
Because
it is
if you-
hasty generalization by definition.
If he says that he can put somebody that's dead on Skype, there's no way that you can have your brain so warped as to think that that's possible if you've tried it. Like you have to be able to produce that physical product.
I
He's
haven't seen the
offering
physical
it
product
as
yet
a-
that nobody's
as a
looking
service. He's offering it as a service. Therefore, he must know whether or not A, it can happen, or B, it can't happen.
No, but see, again, I don't know what their methodology is. I know that they invoke a medium, right? Which is obviously there's no real such thing as a medium.
It says
But-
video.
But no, they use a medium. I don't know how there's conduit. They actually have a third person involved in this that is actually the medium. I read about it.
Oh, hold on. Let me. I'll read what.
Now,
What
I don't know how that works with the video, but the other services actually involve an actual person, which is a medium.
Yeah, hold on. Y'all can go ahead and talk while I pull this up. It's gonna take.
Are any of you familiar with a guy called Terry A. Davis?
No, sir.
No.
Do I
Terry
want
Davis
to? Is this another thing I don't want to know about?
No,
Okay.
it's nothing that creepy. But Terry A. Davis is this really intelligent guy who's totally out of his mind. He created his own operating system to compete with stuff, like Windows and Mac. But it's supposed to be like an operating system that's like dedicated to God, the Christian God.
Okay.
So I mean, this
So
is
God-
just an example
God
of how a
operating
very
system?
intelligent guy. He created his own operating system himself, totally from scratch. But he wants it to be like some kind of like icon to celebrate God.
Dr. Zayas says it's called Temple OS.
Yeah, there we go. Temple
Thanks,
OS.
Thanks, Doc. Oh, he's not.
This guy also believes that he's being attacked by CIA N-words that glow in the dark.
Well, clearly he's intelligent enough to make an operating system, because I guarantee none of us probably could.
Here's how they define what they've got. This is the goal for the collaborating spirits is to use both binary, optical, and auditory information, one such that is within
Binary or
at least
binaural?
98% reliable.
Is it
This is what
binaural
he
or
claims,
binary?
98% reliable.
Wait, that's a big difference. I don't remember that. Was it binary or binaural?
Binary. I can read, Steve.
Okay. What is that? How? I don't know. I don't know what they mean by that.
I don't know what they mean by any of it. But the fact that he says it's 98% reliable, obviously that's bullshit.
Well, but 98% gives them 2% wiggle room, so they can be like, "Oh, it's just your skepticism."
It's just gonna work for
So
you.
it's going to be 2%
For everybody.
It's going to fail 2% 100% of the time, basically.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, these things are easily demonstrably tested, right? Again, the whole literally, where'd you put the will? If a customer comes in and says, "Hey, you know, to the dead person, you've left something. Where is it?" How do they get around that?
They don't, because it's bullshit.
Well, they do try to get around a lot of times. That what they do is they just like Thomas Westbrook said. They basically have said things like, "Well, you know, the connection wasn't strong enough. You weren't faithful enough." That's what Benny Hinn does with his whole. And this is the most disgusting form of it. When Benny Hinn, you get up there and you're full of adrenaline, right? So you probably will feel a little bit better if you're not feeling well because of the adrenaline rush. It happens, right? People can actually make their mind such that they are, for temporary purposes, feeling euphoric, and so when they leave the stage and they throw away their pills and everything else, and then they have that high goes away and their sickness comes back that never actually left, then Benny Hinn will just say, well, you weren't strong enough in your belief that you were actually cured. That is vile.
But he could be one of those people you're talking about that's just convinced himself that he's that kind
I've watched him enough to know that he isn't, though. I've already passed judgment. I don't know enough about cell phone to pass judgment, so I'm reserving judgment.
It's all bullshit, people.
You can't be a PhD saying that you can literally have an auditory conversation with a dead relative with 98% success rate.
Well, you might just be a shitty scientist
and not be full of shit.
You'd be surprised what PhDs are capable of.
Yeah, again, the probability is high that he's full. That he knows he's full of shit. But I don't like passing judgment.
I know what PhDs are capable of. I mean, hell, there's all kinds of creationists that are that I've seen and
Jordan Peterson.
But there's a big difference between making a claim about something that's not falsifiable, like a god, and something that is demonstrably easily falsifiable. Yeah. And trying to sell a product around it.
Unless they've done something like this, and again, might be a stretch, but bear with me because again, I don't know the methodology. But we do all know.
The fact that you keep trying to defend this.
I'm not trying to defend them. I'm telling you, I think people should not jump to conclusions without having all the evidence. That's what skepticism is.
This is the one time you should jump to conclusions.
No, you shouldn't.
This is literally
a fallacy.
The one time
is a fallacy. Hasty generalization is a fallacy, and always it will be a fallacy. You can't just throw away fallacies, right? Just because
fine, call it a fallacy, whatever. It's still.
No, it's not fine.
Reality.
If it's a fallacy. That's the problem. But once you know about his methodology, then condemn him, right? And I'm not condemning him for the fact that he's full of shit because it's obviously bullshit. It's wrong. That's something that there's no question of. It's
obviously bullshit. Fallacy
Steve,
or not.
I'm a Steve.
Go ahead.
I agree with him. I think people are genuinely convinced.
Okay, you're agreeing with me, Steve?
Yeah, I think some of these people genuinely believe, no matter how intelligent they are, that they have developed some criterion that has convinced them that they could actually have the ability to do these things. And
to have a video conversation with somebody that's passed on, like that's something that you have to physically produce.
Well, but again,
you can still do that though. Like you could say, okay, I've developed these criteria to determine that I'm receiving communication from a spirit, and this is how I know. And because I'm so smart, I trust my ability to ascertain these facts, and thus, like sometimes the more intelligent someone is, the easier it is for them to say bullshit.
But the only way, Kyle, that I can see this being plausible for them actually genuinely believing it and not being complete con artists is if it's one of those things where their conversation with the dead, they say, oh, it's not an actual auditory conversation, but it's through some type of code, like the spirits communicate through clicks in the line.
I was going to go with. I got interrupted, but that's what I was going to go with.
That's not what they say, though.
Hang on.
That's not what they say.
Apophenia is a very powerful thing. And I think that if they do it such that you are looking at more of maybe like white noise, you're looking at some kind of pattern recognition of some kind, right?
That's not what they say, though. They say they can put your passed on relative on video.
I don't know I don't know what that entails. Obviously I don't see what that's.
I don't either. It can't entail anything. But that's my point, though. Like they have to have had something happen where they can. I don't know how they're going to pass that off to work.
I mean, do you think the whole thing is just such a huge scam? They're getting investors and they're just going to call out. I mean, they don't even have anything because I've seen. I mean, there's actually pictures
of course
their
they don't.
stuff. So,
they have nothing to produce. Here's what they say.
So
where they're getting people is that they say that the soul video is several years down the road. That they're starting out with this soul switch and soul keyboard, which is the yes or no switch and the keyboard thing that, you know, like you can text back and forth. That's easy to fake, and that's something that I agree with you that they could be able to convince themselves that this is actually communicating with spirits. Where that falls off for me is the crossing into the video thing, and where I think that they're being deceptive is they're going to get people with the soul switch and the soul keyboard with the promise of soul video down the road.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
completely
investing,
possible.
guys. This is gonna be something that happens later on down the road. We've got to keep trucking, and that's the carrot on the stick that they're going to dangle in front of people's faces once the soul switch and the soul keyboard thing keeps
But
coming.
if initially it only gives you a yes or no answer, that's so easy to debunk. Just go with the dead relative and just be like, is your name Margaret? Is your name Mildred? Is your name Susie? And just go with
Does your name start with a J?
Well, the soul has Alzheimer's, though. They don't know any better.
No, I guarantee.
Do the wrong name over and over until one of them says yes.
I guarantee it. Whether they're hot, doing a whole cold read or a hot read, there is going to be some information given to them. I guarantee it. They're not going to do this blind.
Oh, so are they providing the answers, or are they just selling the product?
I don't know.
They provide. It's done there. Like you have to go to one of these communities.
It's on site.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on site. Yeah, definitely on site.
Of course, it's full of shit, Steve.
Of course it is.
Well, okay, we all agree it's full of shit. Nobody's saying it's not full of shit.
No. Of course, the people are full of shit. If it's on site, if they make you come out there, if they
there might be a few of them that actually believe this stuff. I have realized there's some people that believe some pretty fucked up shit, and they actually do believe it.
They believe the dollar signs. That's what they believe. They see those big dollar signs, and that's what they believe.
Cognitive dissonance is a powerful thing.
Yeah, but it's also not as prevalent as you think.
Now, again,
most of the time, people know what they're doing.
After they come on and we can actually talk to them, then I might fully agree with you. Who knows?
This is I'm going in there full guns blazing too. He's already canceled on me 3 times. I'm not holding back with this. Put my grandma on the phone right now. She's not even dead. That's going to be the funny thing.
That would be hilarious.
Imras,
you should compete with
say hello to you. Welcome.
Yeah, hi, Imras. By the way, just FYI, so you guys know that the chat is not private. So if you type something in the chat, it will be shown because the way I'm streaming. Just FYI, so far nobody says anything embarrassing about themselves, but just want to throw that out there.
Well, we can clear. I think I can fix
everything I say being.
Well, it's not. No, it only comes up when they show it. You don't have to clear anything out. It just comes up for like a chat bubble. But
so when you just typed that you have anal warts, Steve, it popped up.
Everybody saw that. Yeah.
No, that was me.
No, I actually called allegedly Dave over. He peed on it, and got rid of it.
Oh yeah, we had that guy too.
Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Allegedly, what? Dave. He's a flat earther, a sovereign citizen, and a urine therapy guy. And he said that
what therapy?
You ever heard of urine therapy?
He washes himself with aged urine. He even has like a set amount of days that it's supposed to sit out before you.
What the fuck?
But he said that this nurse, funny thing was that this nurse called him in the middle of the night and called him over to her friend's house or something like that. And she asked him to pee on her friend's leg that had gangrene, and it cleared the gangrene up right then.
This is not therapy. Like, this is definitely sexual. Like, we know this. Like, we agree. Like, this is.
No, but there's this one video I saw. There's this one video of these 2 guys in their bathroom together. They have a big jar full of aged urine, and then one of the guys takes off the cap.
Are you into? What?
I want to make I make a series called Bullshit Busted, where I debunk bullshit on the internet, like 9/11 truthers and such. And I want to make it about urine therapy, where these guys will drink their urine, they'll put it in their eyeballs, they'll wash their hair with it, and they think that it has some kind of like mystical healing powers, and it'll
it's medicinal. And the longer you age it, the more potent it gets.
David Avocado Wolf.
Yeah,
he injects himself with his urine.
He injects himself with urine?
Yeah.
There's been a couple videos on that too. That guy, how he's not dead, I don't know.
I did a video on him, and he says that it's an alternative to cancer.
You guys had a battle, didn't you?
And
did you guys go back?
Urine is an alternative to cancer?
Hold on one second. He said what now? It's got alternatives to cancer?
Yeah, he claims that it's an alternative to cancer and that vaccines are dangerous, but if you do a urine vaccine, that's the most powerful cure that there is. And what you do is you don't even need a doctor, you don't need medical supervision. You just get like your first clear stream of urine, and you inject it directly into you, and they'll show you down in South America. There's a clinic where they'll actually show you how to do it to yourself. And there was one woman who did this, and she got like toxic levels of urine in her system, and I'm pretty sure that she died from it.
Or you get an air bubble.
Yeah, fun feminist fact. Female urine is not actually sterile. Just so you guys know.
Did you say fun feminist fact?
Yeah, urine is not sterile. And by the way, two things. One, Thomas, didn't you have a actual beef with him at one time? Didn't you guys go back and forth?
No, he did block me from his Facebook page. Because I published that video on Facebook, and it got shared by like Cybabe and the Incredible Hulk, or the Credible Hulk, and a bunch of others. And so that video is like it took off and went viral on Facebook because that's where his following is. And everyone started sharing my video to his page and stuff. And that was right after like he'd made his reviews public. And within like a few days, he went from like 5 stars down to like 1 star, and he had like 10,000 1-star reviews. And
wow.
And so like I was one of the people who got in there in like the time period, but like he instantly closed and hid his reviews because he didn't want it to be shown. But no, he didn't actually have a beef with me. I was really careful with my video to call him out without outright calling him a con man, because I didn't want to get sued. Because he is a multi-millionaire.
He's sued for calling him
because it's slander. It could be considered slander.
Yeah,
or libel is written.
But you'd have to know it was false.
You ever heard of Jilly Juice?
I've heard of that. That's the
Not
one
sexual.
Jeff Holiday talked about.
Not sexual.
Yeah, she's coming on September the 11th, but she.
Although I did have a girlfriend named Jill. We called Jilly. In some case, that juice was. Never mind.
She was famous for because she was on Dr. Phil. She was on Dr. Phil a couple of months ago, and she sells this remedy. She calls it that it's made of cabbage, a bunch of salt, and some other like natural ingredients. But she claims that it can regrow limbs, can cure cancer, and it will cure your homosexuality. So I have ordered some. And I will be drinking it live on the show on September the 11th to see. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a couple of dick pics. Nate and Thomas, if you want to donate to that, then that's fine. But we're going to see if I still react.
Did you say dick pics?
Yeah. I'm gay, so we're going to see if it cures me.
It's not very inclusive.
Well, it's because I'm.
He's just doing the test. You want to drink it? You want to take a test? I mean, I don't. I wouldn't want to.
But
Kyle,
doesn't it give you explosive diarrhea?
Yes.
That and it stroke, because the lady on Dr. Phil, she said that she drank it and she started having like really bad migraines, and she went to the doctor and she had 2 strokes.
Yeah, what it is cabbage juice has been sitting for a couple days or longer in heat, and it's very, very salty. And what happens is, because your intestines are mostly water, if you drink a lot of salt, that's why you die with the ocean. There's osmosis that happens, and your intestines actually dry out. And they basically fall apart. I mean,
let's be real though. I'm not gonna actually drink it. I ordered it so that it looked like I'm going to, and I'm gonna replace it with like some V8 juice, because number one, I'm not gonna risk having a stroke. Number two, I actually enjoy being gay, so I'm not trying to cure it.
You got to at least taste it. You got to at least taste it. You cannot not taste it. I mean, come on. You got to taste it. Tell us how it is.
Kyle Curtis, if you die of a stroke, then you're not gay anymore.
That's true.
That's true.
It works.
You can't give the bitch what you want.
And that's why shit like Laetrile and amygdalin it cures cancer, because it kills you.
How?
But it got rid of your cancer.
How do you regrow limbs though? That's sure it can cure gayness and cancer. How does somebody regrow a limb though?
You can't prove it can't.
Shut up, Nate.
I just, and somebody pointed out, and I noticed it too. This is supposed to be the Feminist After Show, and we have 1 woman in here, and that's just because of the patriarchal system that we have in this heteronormative society. So I just want to point that out. Goddamn right. Go pow.
We're all white males in here.
And by the way, it's funny is I also realized that Nate was having a discussion with what was it? What's her actual name though?
Emerus? You can call me Emily. That's
Emily,
my name.
Yeah. So he was having a talk with you on it, right? And,
yes.
And yet, like, I'm the actual considered to be what I'd be an anti-feminist, right? And I'm anti-SAW. But when I say anti-feminist, right, I am just literally referring to what Nate puts out as far as the extreme version, right? And so the word feminist means different things to different people. Everything you guys talked about, and I know you missed the beginning of this, that you guys agreed on just about everything. So there's really very little to have commentary on, right? I mean, wasn't the dumpster fire.
Well, we went for like 2 hours straight, though, despite that.
Yeah,
before
no,
you
it was
answer,
great
before
conversation.
you answer, let me say this one thing. Somebody in the chat said, if I do drink this stuff and I die, Steve, you can use Soul Phone to bring me back on the show. And
I can tell you how it is.
Yeah, just let us know from the other side
by
if
the
you're
way,
still gay.
Emrys, I was trying to think of
the Christians were right.
I was trying to think of feminist next door, Emrys, by the way. That's because what you go by is what I know you as feminist.
Okay, go ahead. Back to the feminism. But yeah, it was a great discussion.
Oh, it was a very wonderful discussion. But I mean,
Yeah.
here was two people that actually subscribe to feminism. And the topic itself was, is feminism necessary to invoke change? And yet, I don't know if that was ever brought up.
The beginning briefly, but then it kind of delved into like different subtopics from that point.
Yeah.
Because I hope the topic would be, do we need feminism and what does it mean to
Yeah,
actually have
they
that?
answered that, and they both agreed. Like
That
Nate
lasted
said-
like a minute, right?
Well, yeah, but you can't dive
But
into
yeah,
it.
like
anymore.
Nate fucked it all up because he was supposed to be like,
Damn
no,
it, Nate.
feminism sucks, and then he was like, no,
Yeah.
actually, I'm cool with it. And I was like, well, what am I even here for?
Yeah, that was kind of my goal. I didn't want to say anything on Twitter. I kind of wanted to catch everybody off guard. I mean, it seems like it worked effectively because nobody knew how to really
Casey
go
was
off
stunned.
of that.
Yeah, she was stunned. She was like, what? Did we hear you?
Fuck that. I wasn't stunned.
No, Casey. Caitlin, she had to like 3 times go, what'd you say? And Nate's like, am I muted?
Yeah, that was funny.
That's hilarious.
Oh, I was expecting a complete dumpster fire, and we didn't get it.
So was I. Honestly, so was I.
I don't
Y'all
mind.
went above the fray.
I'm not. You know what? I love the dumpster fires. Don't get me wrong, but a great conversation is just equally good.
Same thing happened with Sargon, though, Steve. When we had Sargon and Brittany Simon on, we thought that was going to be just
like left out.
If you want dumpster fires, you ever heard of Destiny?
Oh yes.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Every single debate he has, always a dumpster fire.
He debated his mom. He had a debate with his mom. He heard his mom say something, say something in the background about politics. He had her call in to his live stream show, and he debated his own mother for an hour and a half.
That's harsh.
But then they always end it with, "I love you, honey. I love you. I'm gonna see you this weekend. Bye."
Yeah, it's so.
God damn it, mom! You suck. God, you fucking. Your ideas are just goddamn stupid, mom. I love you. See you this weekend.
It's so bizarre. But I'm thinking about. Getting. Well, let me ask you this, Imras, because he was brought up by Nate, I believe, and Thomas, you may know a little bit about this guy too. But we spoke briefly about Dean Esme.
Mm.
God,
you have any opinions on Dean Esme, Imras?
You know I do.
Should I know who that is? But I'm gonna put my video on since none of you guys are giving me death threats. Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
Welcome.
Wait, so is this an invitation now to give you a death threat?
There you go.
Well, I mean, if you want to bring me back on that thing, sure.
On cell phone?
Yeah. No, I don't know who that. Should I know who that is? Is that like
Thomas,
Dean
you want to jump in?
Yeah, Dean
Thomas?
Do you want to do it, Dean? I mean,
Well, so Dean Esme, he's kind of borders on
You're speechless.
Mentally unstable. If that's
Okay, look at Dean was in the Red
kind way
Pill.
of putting it.
He was actually in the Red Pill movie. Okay,
He's in the documentary.
He's in the documentary.
fucking Red Pill person.
He's a Red Pill person. He has a channel.
Go on.
He has a channel called Red Pill Religion. He has like 12 sycophants that follow him. He is heavy MGTOW, heavy MRA. His apologetics are some of the worst apologetics on the planet. It's comical. It literally is comical. But he is a pseudo cult leader that will say one thing one day, apologize it for the next, and then say the same thing the next day. He doesn't give a shit who he's talking to. He doesn't give a shit about the verticality of the things he puts out. He doesn't give a shit whether it's true, false. He has said the most abysmal things about people without even knowing who the fuck they are.
Rabid anti-atheist.
He is
But
the
then
worst of the worst.
When people confront him on it, then he plays the victim card every time.
He's persecution porn in
He's like,
him.
no, just check out this Jordan Peterson link. You're gonna love it.
You're not woke enough for Jordan Peterson. That's all.
You should check out on the NonSequitur Show channel. They had Dean Esme debate King Crocoduck. I'm not sure if you know him, but he's also a great atheist YouTuber. And they went back and forth. And Dean Esme was alleging that that Christian scientists are bullied in the scientific community by all the atheist scientists. And then King Crocoduck went back and forth for a long time saying, show me the evidence of this bullying happening. And then at one point, Dean Esmond just shouts, "No, I don't prove anything to you, sir."
Yeah,
and, and then he goes, "Fuck you." That was his response.
And this is the greatest thing.
Crocoduck was like,
so he's an MRA and he's a bullied Christian. It sounds like he's just like a pussy.
Yeah, no,
like,
here's the greatest thing. Here's the greatest thing.
Yeah.
He just before we went on
he's just
air.
like, everyone's so mean to me.
Just before we went on air, we had a little kumbaya moment because Dean and I have his history. He's actually wrote 2 blogs about me, right? Completely bullshit blogs. Go read them. I'm happy to have you guys. I'm a buller. I'm a harasser. I'm the leader of the atheist movement. I'm not even atheist. I harassed his kids. I didn't even know he had kids. No idea he had kids, yet according to him, I'm harassing his kids. This is the vile shit that he'll just throw out there without giving a shit whether it's true or not, right?
Well, he says that all atheists should be fired from their jobs and don't talk to them, ostracize them. He does this big preamble before every stream.
Yeah,
but,
he's just vitriolic. But did we not
yeah.
have a kumbaya moment where we said, okay, for the purpose of this stream, let's all get along, forget the past? I'm like, okay, we'll do what we got to do.
Well, yeah, he's all about that until you back him into a corner.
As soon as we went live, though.
Once you back him into a corner, it's over.
Yeah.
I had him back. He wouldn't come back on with Steve. So on a Sunday night, I had him back where we were going to have like a one-on-one conversation. And him and Godless Engineer were going back and forth, Casey's boyfriend from the night, MRAS. And we just decided that we were going to let them go in. And I mean, it was like World War III. I mean, you thought Dean he's just going to, or excuse me, Max Colby. That's what he wants to be called now, Max Colby.
He just changed his name like
No,
randomly.
no, his real name is
that died about 50 years ago.
Here's the fact. He used to have a channel named Dean that he uses his real name. Dean Esme is his real name. He changed it to Max Colby, but he still has Dean Esme in a lot of his titles. But if you use the term Dean Esme, if you say Dean Esme, you're now harassing him.
Yeah, you're doxing him.
You're doxing him.
You can't be doxed after you're already doxed.
He's not a smart person.
Yeah, of course he's not.
Okay.
And he's been in a documentary. Like he's
under his real name.
The funny part is in the documentary, he's talking to the lady interviewing him and he goes, "Hold on 1 second. I got to vape real quick."
Does he have some kind of eye problem? His eyes were like half closed the entire interview. What's up with
the
that?
vape, man. It's intense.
Sleepy eyes Dean Esme.
Yeah, if you haven't looked at him, you got to at least check him out once. He's actually on the American Loons. I think number 347, the American Loon. Bring that up to him, he'll just lose his shit every time. That's harassment if you bring that up to him. Although it's a fact, he is an American Loon.
I feel like it sounds like I'm harassing him like just by being alive.
Oh, we are.
Well, you're a woman, so yeah.
Exactly. We'll have a video on us tomorrow.
Seems like there's probably nothing that would anger him more than just like me being here.
He absolutely hates
tomorrow,
women.
and we'll all have a video about us. He will on his blog articles and all that. Like, I had a conversation with somebody just in passing. We made like 2 sentences about him on a stream one time. Somebody said, "Yeah, remember that time about Max Colby and King Crocoduck?" That's the extent of the conversation. The next morning, I had a 3.5 paragraph blog post on Red Pill Religion posted about me, how I am a two-faced and some kind of deceiving little worm atheist. I'm just like the rest of those horrible anti-theists over there.
Jade wants to get a word in edgewise real quick, if he may.
Yeah.
Jade?
I just wanted to say there was a question that kept coming up in chat, and before I say this, I just want to say, Emraz and Nate, I thought you both did a great job. You both.
I couldn't find anything to disagree with him with. I hated it.
Yeah, I thought you guys both brought up great points.
Agreeable.
It was great to listen to you guys, and I fully support. I know there's a gender pay gap, and that's something we need to do. We need to work on that for sure. There's definitely. I brought up the point in the chat of light sentences for rapists, even on multiple offenses. That's something that needs to be dealt with. But one question that I kept seeing pop up in chat that I wanted to get Emraz's thoughts on is a lot of people are asking, what rights do you think women do not have?
So I hate this question. But I will say, no pun intended, that my usual response to that is that it's a non sequitur. Which is that to say that the women's rights movement is about equal treatment and equal respect and equal representation in society, and the question, what rights do women not have, is typically limited to legal rights, of which there are, a few that you can name, most specifically like reproductive autonomy. But I try not to even really get into that conversation because I don't want to get dragged down the road of even entertaining the question as legitimate, because it's not about whether or not I have legal rights, right? I mean, like, we all understand that legal rights don't mean equal treatment. Like, any Black person in America can tell you that. And I think it's not a fair question, and it's intended to be a trap, from my experience. So I usually just say, like, it sounds like what you're asking me is like, what am I looking for? Like, what am I asking for? And in that instance, like, what I'm asking for is equal representation. I'm asking for the ability to contribute to society equally from a viewpoint perspective, and I'm asking for an equal level of value, respect, as a woman, as what is given to men. So I guess that would be my response.
Let me can I spring point off that real quick? Because there was also something brought up, and this is something, the only thing I kind of I agree with Dean. Men's rights when it comes to a say in procreation, right? Because I am a father, right? And I've been through the legal system with separation from my ex, who we get along fine. We lived together 5 years. We were best of friends. Shit happens, right? It didn't work out, but I live 2 miles away from her. I have primary custody, but because it's beneficial to my daughter, she has her right now. So that's great. But it is difficult when men seem to have no rights in paternal decisions sometimes, right? And the court system is set up primarily more geared toward the mother sometimes, at least from my experience. And I think that's one thing that Dean brings up, right? That men should have more say in the procreation rights of women. Now obviously that is that argument for women to have autonomy for abortions and things like that. But even still, after the child is born, the court tends to favor the mother over the father. Would you agree?
I would for the most part, yeah. I mean, I worked in the beginning of my legal career, I did do some internship work in the family law system. I don't work in family law at all now. But I do recognize that there are certainly codified and inherent biases that exist in the family law system. And I think that they're harmful to both men and women. And I think the family law reform discussion is 100% legitimate. My only objection to the way that it's handled right now is that it's approached in a way where men who, understandably so, feel like they're not given the same amount of benefit of the doubt, leniency, deferral, first right of refusal as women are. Those are all legitimate objections that are real. But the idea is that the reason for that is because women are privileged in the family law system, and that's what I disagree with. I think that women receive privilege in the family law system, but I think the reason for that is because women are expected to be mothers, and not.
It's a social thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, hang on. Emerson, do you have headphones? Because we're getting a feedback like we did last time. It's going through your speakers to your headphones. And why I do that? Yeah, I think it's a social normative type thing that, like you said, there is this expectation throughout decades of civilization, recent civilization, especially like from the 40s and 50s, where the mother was supposed to be the stay-at-home. They were the nurturer ones, right? They were the mother was the one that was supposed to be the one taking primary care of the child. So I think there's still that stigma in the family court system that it's a carryover from the 50s and 60s, where, hey, who does the maternal things? Who does the caretaking from the home and the family and the children? It's generally the mother. I think that's a social gender role, a constructed role that we have. But let me ask you, because you're a lawyer, what do you think is actually a bigger push people should have for equality or equity when it comes to these types of things? What's that?
Equity.
Equity. I agree with you on that. Yes.
What do you think, Nate?
You're muted.
I think you're exactly right, Nate. Bingo.
You muted.
Silence is golden on that. Don't say a word.
Like
Plead the
4
fifth,
times
man.
today.
Plead
Damn
the
it.
fifth.
All right. No, I was going to say, yeah, I totally agree with everything that was just said. No contention.
This is amazing when you have intelligent people that all agree on the same
Can
thing.
we find something to
It lets for
disagree on?
dull videos, but no, people actually in the live chat are going like they're loving this.
Actually, there was a good question that I forgot to ask last time, and I can't believe this. I wrote it down everything because I have it right here. But since we went into the whole superhero and Wonder Woman and all that in terms of that, the biggest point of contention I think we can find between the two of you is this point: DC or Marvel?
I guess I go with DC personally.
I'm more Marvel.
Marvel, then I guess.
Yeah, I'm more Marvel. Is that bad or good? I don't know. Are we gonna lose half our subs out of this?
Kool-Aid. Go with both and just have my Kool-Aid and drink it too.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you did there.
I guess it depends on the film. I mean, if we're talking about, I don't like a lot of Marvel films unless we're talking about like the original Spider-Man series from like 2002 and such. But if we're talking about DC, then I love the Dark Knight series.
Yeah, you can't go wrong there. Did you hear that Joaquin Phoenix is going to be the new Joker?
Yeah.
No, I didn't hear that, but I can imagine that working out.
I thought they put the kibosh on that.
To make this more interesting, since we all agree so much, how about I play devil's advocate here and ask Emrez, what do you think about different studies that have claimed that women are happier in the house?
Uh-oh.
Well, I think some women are happier in the house. I think it depends on the woman.
Good answer.
Because I know that in like some of the more alt-right, alt-light spheres of the internet, they'll bring up different papers that have said that women are actually happier in traditional gender roles rather than going out and doing the man's work per se.
Well, I mean, I think certainly if you're a right-leaning paper or a right-leaning researcher, then certainly you have potentially a goal in mind that you're trying to prove with your research. But beyond that, I think there's actually something to be said for the idea that because we live in a patriarchal society, and I know I roll my own eyes when I say patriarchy, like it's a thing. Everyone hates it when feminists say patriarchy, but it is like we live in one. And it's hard to be a woman trying to act like a man and be successful in the patriarchy. It's not fun. It sucks. And so probably for some, you could say with some legitimacy, like it's easier to accept the gender role that has been assigned to you than to try to make it in a world that isn't really designed for you. But I don't think that that's because women are inherently happier in the home. I think it's just because it's harder to be a woman in a patriarchy.
We're still getting a little bit of
what if
feedback. Do you guys hear that?
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, sure. But if somebody has their mic that is like wide open, I don't know where you guys getting that weird feedback sound too. She has headphones on, so that's not shouldn't be coming from.
I don't hear
Stop
anything.
fucking blaming me for everything. Always.
Damn. That's what I was going to say about the
Because you're a
patriarchy.
woman.
You know what's it's funny about when people
See,
talk about the
this is
patriarchy.
what happens when you invite a woman on the stream.
You know what we got? We have quotas. We do them. We're mandated by NASA to the Illuminatis. We got to have at least one female on. But even I agree that the society is generally geared to a patriarchal system. I think that's kind of a given. But I see a lot of people blaming the patriarchal for just about everything. They blame everything. When we talk about like radical feminism, they seem to inappropriately blame patriarchal system for things that I don't think has a responsibility for what's going on. Now, are we overall a system that's generally geared to a patriarchal system? Sure.
Well, I think also that
there's ask a question real quick too. I believe.
Okay, Emrys, go ahead, and maybe we can isolate that sound because it's not coming from Emrys.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think sometimes, at least for me, when I encounter fellow feminists who I see using arguments that don't necessarily add up for me when it comes to the patriarchy, it's that, you have someone who feels a harm and they don't know how to articulate it, and patriarchy is like a word that they learned, so they use it. I'm fully aware that happens. I wish that it didn't. I mean, I've had those uncomfortable conversations where I'm kind of like, I don't really know, like, if you're articulating this properly.
It happens to me all the
Because
time. I mean, they literally blame the heterosexual cisgender white male, and I'm like, I didn't do shit to you. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
like I think that there's a way to articulate, like, I feel marginalized by this, or I feel like I can't participate in this conversation the same way that you can. And I don't, like, I think people are afraid to say, like, I don't know why I feel this way, but I feel like I can't participate the same way that you are. People aren't really willing to say that maybe as much as they should. And I think if they did, then we could avoid like this issue, right? Where someone's like, I assume I understand why I feel this way, and then have it either not be accurate or not make sense to other people. So I would agree that I think, like I said, I roll my eyes even when I say the patriarchy, because I do think it's overused. Like, I think the word mansplaining is horrifically overused. I never really use that term because it's just like stupid now.
I heard
So I would
I
actually.
heard the term gay-splaining the other day.
So I find those terms funny, to be honest with you. I take them for what they
I
are.
find them ridiculous.
I
It's
think, well, they
ridiculous.
are ridiculous, but they're kind of comical in some ways. I don't know.
Jade or Odeon, did you have something that you were getting ready to say a second ago? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No
It was one
problem.
of you.
So the question that I wanted to ask was it seems to me that my question is to Emrys. It seems to me that a lot of women who at an early age decide to have kids, they seem to be stuck in the sense of furthering their education and going into that career that they want to. I don't know, and this is totally like anecdotal, right? But it's just something that I kind of noticed in a society that, like, it's very hard for women who already have children to further their education and go into that career that they want. Now, to fix that problem, if that problem exists, what do you suggest that we should do as a society to maybe tackle that issue?
Sure. So I think that the number one issue with respect to the workplace and women being the bearers of reproductive responsibility for our species is that women are not allocated any different credit for that. And what I mean by that is not that women should be advantaged like unfairly, or that you should get some kind of like +1 when you're out because you're pregnant. What I mean is that as a society, we treat certain things as human. And the example that I usually use is sleeping. So like most offices close at nighttime because they understand that humans have to sleep. Or they have shift workers to accommodate the necessity of their workers to sleep. And what we don't do as a society is accommodate the need for humans to reproduce. So when you leave the workforce as a pregnant person, you're treated as being out on vacation, on sick leave, whatever. It's not treated as something that's a necessity or normal. It's a detriment to your career. There's a lot of statistical evidence that employers look at pregnant people or people who have young children differently than people who are either male or don't have children. So I think as a society, we have to accept that having children is part of being a human. And that also means granting paternity leave and encouraging men to be more active in their children's lives. But it just seems as though women have always had to bear the burden economically of child rearing. And if we retooled the way that employers think about having children as just being a human thing, I think that would change the detriment to women's careers pretty significantly.
It depends on the field and it depends on the company, because I've worked in retail a long time, and
Okay.
in our company.
Can I ask a follow-up real
Sure.
quick?
Sure.
So the other thing that I notice is that since it's detrimental for women to have kids at, let's say, a an early age when they're in their prime reproductive stage, right? They skip out on that and to pursue their career and stuff like that, right? Now, once they reach that point where it's harder, it's dangerous for a lot of women, and so I think that's one of the main reasons why I think that's a main issue that we need to tackle as a society. And so, do you think that maybe the federal government should take into consideration like specific
You can answer your phone,
loans
Odie,
or
by the way.
oh
And
somebody's
are you by an
texting.
airport, Odian, by the
Are
way?
you near a helicopter or something?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're by like a helicopter. I don't know.
Really?
You're just like
I
still have
don't
a
know.
beeper. I don't know.
It could be Emirates too. I haven't isolated yet, but you guys hear that helicopter noise, right, or whatever it is. This is.
That like
beeper's
it's like a
alright.
vibrator. It's like a. I'm.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know
It's-
honestly. But
Showing the.
It's like a phone vibrating. That's what it sounds like.
but it's every time somebody's talking. It's like I hear that feedback.
Does somebody have a vibrator on? Jay
It's
Dragon.
not me. I said no.
How do you think it's always about you?
Oh, fuck that.
By the way, where did Shannon go? I thought she was going to come
Shannon
in.
messaged she's making out with her boyfriend, and I asked her if Paul knew about it.
It is their last night together. It's true.
Yeah.
To address the question that was just asked, that is one of Jermaine Greer's main points of philosophy. So if you've read Jermaine Greer, that sounds like that's maybe where you're pulling it from, and I would agree that it is an issue. That certainly birth rates are down in virtually every developed society, and part of that is because women understand that they bear the economic responsibility of reproduction. Like, for instance, I'm 30, I'm a lawyer, I have no children, and I don't plan on having children anytime soon because I don't feel I could be productive in my career and also have a child. So, and I know many other women who feel the same way. So we're now in negative birth rates in virtually every developed nation at this point. And
That's not necessarily
okay
a bad
with-
thing. Yeah.
no, I'm okay with that. But I do
Overpopulation is
think,
a real thing. So.
I do think that eventually, whether or not it's about repopulating, it's worth noting at least that never in history have we reached a point of negative population. And we have at this point, and so what that means is that there is such a significant detriment that it is statistically recognizable. And I think for that reason, it's significant. Whether the government could effectively manage that, like I don't know that it's necessarily something that I want the government to be involved in. I don't really trust government involvement in reproductive.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, I wouldn't
services.
say
If you think that there's a shortage of people though in the world, go out on Black Friday. That will change very quickly.
Yeah, you know,
Or
think
women especially, right?
Yeah, I think there's a historical hangover, holdover from the fact that there's a societal thing that reproduction, right? A family, the nuclear family, mom, dad, and 2 kids, 0.3 kids, and a cat and dog, right? That was considered the nuclear family. 2.3 kids per family, and I'm sure there's religious overtones as well. I mean, look at the Catholics. Oh, have as many kids as you can. That's actually their belief, right? Not as many kids as you can afford. Have as many kids as you can. Now, I think they've kind of toned back on that, but not in certain areas, right? They do want you to procreate, and yet overpopulation is a legit concern. I mean, in fact, if we had negative population in most places, it would actually be very good for the world, I think. So I'm not,
Yeah.
and I never wanted
Most
kids.
people-
I never wanted kids.
I think
So
most
I
people
know.
would agree. Like, I should not reproduce. Like, I think it's probably better.
Oh,
As someone who's lived in Southeast Asia and literally had, lived in cities where there are people stacked upon people and the air pollution gets so bad that they have air pollution alert warnings and you have to wear face masks when you go outside because there's so many cars on the road.
Yep.
Yeah, the number one thing that you can do to decrease your carbon footprint is to not have kids. And the US has
Here,
kind of,
look how green, and I have a plant in the background and everything.
it's like in the
you know how
US,
controversial
we
that
don't
is,
realize,
Thomas?
like, if you're not living in Los Angeles or New York or somewhere, like, the U.S. is massive, and so we don't necessarily see it as much in the U.S. But it's this world, like the more that you travel, the more you realize just how overpopulated we are. Like you see shows like Planet Earth and it just seems like pristine and like remote. It's like they have to take helicopters out to like the one last little island in the Caribbean that doesn't have people and garbage all covering it. That's like the last, little oasis or little bastion of like isolation, and they have to go to places like Antarctica to find it. We're dealing with a huge overpopulation crisis, and the only way that we're going to be able to survive as a human race is if we start cutting back and using birth control and having less babies. But
explain that to the Catholics.
Honestly, I think
and the Muslims.
I think as a society we're kind of overreacting in terms of when it comes to overpopulation. Because
overreacting? Because I will definitely disagree with you on that. I think we're underreacting.
We're killing our planet. Like we're literally killing our planet.
We're overusing resources. We're not enough occupations.
How do you feel about climate change, Odeon?
I think that's something that's very real.
Well, you know what?
Man-made though? Do you believe it's man-made?
Just Google search the Great Pacific Garbage.
Again, I don't even like asking somebody, what's your, do you believe in climate change? It should be, do you understand climate change? Same thing. I don't ever ask.
Yeah.
You know what? From here on out, I'm going to try to avoid ever saying, do you believe in evolution? It's just going to be, do you understand evolution? Because
nonetheless, though, there are some people
whether you believe it or not.
There are some people that don't believe it's man-made, or do you believe it's man-made, Odeon?
Yeah, I think that humans have they play a big part.
Yeah.
There is something to be said of it is the biggest part, right? There is. I mean, they haven't really confirmed that yet. I think all the evidence is pointing that way, right?
What?
There isn't actually a study that shows that human anthropogenic gases is the primary cause. It's assumed, but there's no single study that actually says that. But
climate change?
Yeah. But I asked Potholer 54 that exact question.
1 second.
And so that was.
I don't think that's accurate.
Okay, well, like I said, Potholer 54 is one of the leading people in the climate movement.
I don't know who that avatar name is. I'm going to look for actual.
You don't know the great Potholer 54?
He's
missing out. He made.
Oh my God, he's one of the greatest.
Destroying Steven Crowder.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you know what? I was on the after show with him that he was supposed to have a debate with Crowder and DPR Jones.
He bitched out.
Did you watch that one? Yeah, he bitched out. But DPR Jones took my thing, and he actually was like, "Oh, I know who this person is." He's like, "Had I known it was you, Steve, I wouldn't have let you on the show." But he's kidding. But yeah, the way it is this: there's various factors that go into climate change. The two leading causes are going to be anthropogenic gases and solar cycles. Those are the two leading things. However, which one is the greater primary factor? That one's still in dispute. However, I think the evidence is showing that it's probably going to be human anthropogenic gases, but they haven't made that conclusion as of to date.
Actually, they have. NASA has a study on climate.nasa.gov.
What does it say? And by the way, this was a year ago when I asked him, so I haven't done any follow-up. So if anything's new between last year and now, please let me know. But as far as I know, there has been no study, and even Potholer said that he would even think there would be a study, because it's kind of accepted. But that I was right. There is no single study that says this is the leading cause over something like the solar cycles.
This links to a thing called the UCSUSA.org. Okay, and in this article, in this publication, it says that scientists agree global warming is happening and humans are the primary cause, and it lists.
Right. No, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying there's no single study that they're going by to make that determination.
It's a combination that comes together to show that it's happening.
Yes, it's a consilience of data. Right.
Wouldn't it be more of a meta-analysis?
It is a meta-analysis. Yes, exactly what it is. It's a meta-analysis and a conciliation of data, but nothing that is done in a single study to show that. That's my point.
No, but a meta-analysis is a collection of hundreds of studies.
Right.
Yeah,
I know what a meta-analysis
so
is.
That still points to human-caused climate change.
I think you're
overwhelmingly. It says by the Orcases study in 2004, the Duran study in 2009, the Andreg
There
in
is
2010,
there's
Cook in
still controversy
2013,
on that issue.
Verhagen in 2014, Sternhaus in 2014, and Carlton in 2015.
Yeah,
Those are the studies that it took, and these are the results: 100% from the Oryxes in 2004, Doran 97%, Angreg 97%, Cook 97%, Verhagen 91%, Sternhaus 93%, and Carlton 97%. So it's overwhelmingly that it's human-caused global warming.
I think again you're missing my point. We know that it's a factor, and scientists have determined that we have a huge influence. But however, solar cycles do play an incredible part, and it's
Right,
kind
Steve,
of
this is thing that
you're not.
this is thing
Why do you
that
keep
these
interrupting me
are
when I'm
the-
trying to explain it, Kyle? Hang on. I understand the topic. Trust me. When you're saying something along the lines of we suspect this to be the case, okay? However, there is controversy on what is the leading cause because it is so many variables in determining in the carbon emissions and anthropogenic gases opposed to the. So what is the ratio? What is the ratio between the human amount and the solar cycle
It doesn't
amount?
say.
But I'm asking
I have
you, if
to-
there's a
I have to
determination,
read-
what's the
I have
ratio?
to read the actual article, but it says that building on two previous studies, a landmark 2013 peer-reviewed study evaluated 10,306 scientists to confirm that over 97% of climate scientists agree, and over 97% of scientific articles find that global warming is real and largely caused by
Right,
humans.
exactly. We all agree it's real, and we all agree it's largely part of that. Again, you're not
Right.
understanding what I'm
But
saying. You're arguing something
getting
completely
you're not
different.
getting the next line though. Is that 97% of these studies find that humans are the leading cause
Okay,
of
what is the
global warming.
ratio then? How much of it is human cause as opposed to solar? Until a study's
Well-
done like that, then they can't really make the final determination. Is my
Well, you
point.
can't say that. You have all of these. This article right here lists
How
this
mu- but
7 alone.
how
that
much alone?
declare humans
Right,
as the leading
Kyle.
cause?
Well,
But if you
I also
don't know the ratio, then you don't know how much of it is leading over solar. If I could say like 20% of lead, look at if they had a breakdown, if you could find this for me, find
Okay,
a break.
so them
Find
saying that
find
humans
a.
are the leading cause does not mean that they're the leading cause. Or is there
They
some
have. There's
ambiguous
still.
meaning there?
Oh my God.
What does the leading cause mean?
There's still debate on that. There's still people out there that say it's not the
No,
leading cause.
there's not. There's no debate. I'm
Okay,
reading it
well,
right here.
I think you're
What
wrong.
does somebody answer me? What does leading cause mean?
There are some scientists that believe that it's leading cause, but there's no
Yeah,
single study. It's
yeah.
a meta-analysis. It's my
There's
whole
3%
point.
that don't believe that. But can somebody answer me what leading cause means? What does leading cause mean? That means more likely, or the greater than.
When you get a study that can show that climate change is 51% man, 49% solar, let me know, because that's what I'm saying to you.
It doesn't
That
have
was
to
the-
say that.
that-
You have okay. You argue with all the leading scientists on it. Then it's not.
No, I'm not. I'm not. As a matter of fact, Potholder and I agreed upon this. I had this discussion with Potholder. He agreed with me. So go watch the video.
Thomas, are you getting this? Can you kind of hone it in for me, because I'm really losing it.
You understand what I'm saying, Thomas, don't you? Come on.
I
No.
see, Steve. I
You do and you don't agree.
Well, I get that. What Steve is trying to say is that human involvement does play a role, and it is leading to climate change, and it is leading to global warming.
Absolutely.
But whether or not it is the number one or the number two cause isn't determined or
Isn't
set in
fully
stone.
determined
Is
yet.
that a correct summation?
Yeah, what the ratio is between human involvement as opposed to other.
Now,
other
do you
things
agree
like
with that,
solar.
Thomas?
Now things might have changed. I haven't looked at it in several months. If things have
You see what I'm
changed,
saying, where we do have a consensus that it is the leading cause.
I have seen studies that have shown a much stronger correlation between greenhouse gases that are man-made emissions and a rise in global temperatures, more so like than the rate that you would expect global temperatures to occur without human involvement. And so, like, just going off of that, and as well as the description that NASA has on their site that Kyle was saying, like, I mean, it seems to me that it's obvious that it's the leading cause, but honestly, does it fucking matter?
no, and that's a good point. No, and it
Not at
doesn't.
all.
Let me explain. Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, if it's the number one cause or the number two cause, and one way or another we're hosed, then we still need to cut out that the human cause of climate change.
No, I totally agree. By the way, I muted Emma as
Absolutely
you're getting a lot of feedback through your thing. I don't know where it's coming from.
Otherwise, if we reach a point of no return, where
I totally agree with you. No,
a positive
totally
feedback loop, and the greenhouse gases are causing the ice caps to melt, and it's causing the temperatures in the ocean to rise, and it's causing we reach a point where the ice caps are no longer reflecting as much heat back into the atmosphere. It's getting trapped in our atmosphere because we have carbon in the atmosphere that's causing the Earth to heat faster than it otherwise would. And if this cycle feeds into itself, we may already be at a point of no return.
No, we're definitely at that cusp.
We may be able to stop it if we start using methods of carbon sequestration, but I don't think it really matters if it's the number one or the number two cause. It's still a massive.
I'm not arguing that it does matter. I agree with you 100%. It doesn't matter what's number two. The fact is that by limiting our emission controls, you automatically are trying to prevent whatever it is that is primary. Let's say the sun is a primary cause. Now, I do think the primary is anthropogenic, but let's say the sun is primary. You're still, by cutting back your emissions and providing a better way to get carbon scrubbing, right? They've developed new materials now to do massive amount of carbon scrubbing, that you're offsetting the damage due to the solar cycles. Now, there are some solar cycles, because you have 11-year, you have a 200-year, you have longer solar cycles, that you cannot change. But at least in 50 years, we're not going to have Florida halfway underwater, right? Because
can I just say,
can you say it robotically? Sure, go for it.
Is the sun the primary cause? Of course the sun is the cause. It's the source of heat, but it's being trapped by the carbon emissions, and it's not being reflected by the size of the ice.
No, we're talking about the solar cycles having no, you're misunderstanding. Of course, the sun is a source of heat. We're talking about the solar cycles adding to overall global warming more effectively than something like greenhouse emissions. That's what we mean by determining by the sun. We're saying that the sun is actually, because the solar cycles are getting shorter in duration. They're getting more. You're getting more flares. We're getting more hotter sun. Those kind of things are having a overall effect on us. Right now, I think it's about 1.7 or 1.8, if I'm not mistaken, Celsius over the last 200 years. That's a fact. Nobody in the right mind can look at that data and say there hasn't been almost a 2-degree change in overall net temperature. What they'll do is they look at little small local minima, right? And they'll say, oh, well, between 60s and 70s or whatever it is, we had an overall net drop. That's not how you do an evaluation. You're not looking at minima. You're looking at the entire 200 years we've been trying to study climate change. And we know that the Earth is warming up. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And so climate deniers, that's what they're denying. A true climate denier says the Earth is not warming, rather than what is the biggest charge.
Oh, I was going to say, regardless of whether or not you believe that climate change is real, I mean, you can still be against lowering the human carbon footprint, because don't we want to have clean air to breathe in and live longer and not get cancer?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
In the air?
Sure.
100%.
Yeah.
But I was also going to ask, are any of you familiar with the idea stratospheric aerosol injection?
Isn't that basically chemtrails?
Is that like
chemtrail?
Is that like seeding it with silver solution to make it rain?
Chemtrail is the conspiracy.
It's like spraying Aquanet into the air.
Is that with CFCs? Like
they want to spray some kind. There are different people out there, different scientists who are proposing the idea that we can release different kinds of reflective particles into the stratosphere, and these particles will reflect sunlight back away from the Earth to help cool the planet. And their basis for doing this is because we see that after a volcanic eruption goes on, we see the particles from the volcano go up into the air, and areas where that ash is in the sky, it reflects sunlight in that area too, and that will also cool the planet.
The problem I have with those kind of plans is they tend to not look at every variable, and things like that also could have unintended side effects.
We'll fuck it up, and we'll cause another ice age.
Exactly.
That'll be what'll happen.
Don't the emissions from volcanoes also trap heat, though?
I think it might, to a degree, but it's a net cooling instead of a net warming.
Really? I had not heard that.
Here, I'll give you a link if I can pull it up.
So you think that the reflectivity of the particles would reflect more of the heat or way than trap the heat? Because that'd be the net. The heat there has to be more heat reflected than being trapped.
That's how the last little mini ice age happened.
I'm saying that the effect of it trapping heat doesn't match the amount of light reflected, thus helping cool
Right.
it.
Yeah, there's a greater amount being reflected, and volcanoes tend to lead to ice age for that very reason.
Yeah.
And if Yellowstone went up, it would tend to go to an ice age.
But it isn't
Yellowstone
just
is
that
up
being
in all the
proposed.
kids.
There's also
That's what
ideas.
makes it in the planet, by the way.
What,
That's what I
Yellowstone?
think is going to.
Yellowstone's going to
finish
happen
it
in one
off.
of these days. It's a matter of time. It's
Yellowstone.
30, 40,000 years overdue. It goes up every 630, 640,000 years. And the last eruption was like
1,000 years overdue.
Yeah.
I love how we brought two guests on to talk about feminism, and we've gone off on like the climate change rabbit
They
hole.
agreed. Whatever.
They
Yeah.
agree on everything.
Here's a
Yeah.
link from sciencemag.org about the volcanic cooling of the Earth.
We need a radical feminist, like a really radical. I wouldn't.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we
Empress.
got-
I don't consider.
Radical?
Oh,
What?
I
I don't consider
I
you're
consider
radical in
the-
other ways, baby. I don't consider you to be radical. Everything you said, well, from what I've seen, everything you said, I agree with you. So I can't really. I'm talking about the purple hair, screaming. This.
Yeah, see, that's some bullshit right there.
I
Like,
thought that funny as shit. I'm sorry. I have to agree with Nate on
Thomas,
that. I love watching that kind of
Emrys.
shit. I
Thomas,
do.
have you heard of TERFs, Thomas?
Yes.
Turfs are
Okay.
just? Oh my god.
Exclusionary
I don't get
radical
them.
feminists.
How do they think that they're helping anybody's
Well,
cause?
So I heard Imraz, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I heard that feminism along, if you're a feminist and you smoke, that's the leading cause of cancer.
True statement.
That took me a second, but that was funny.
She does not seem amused.
Oh, she's up
Vaping,
there.
though, so it doesn't count. Hey, does vaping affect climate change?
I think so.
No, it's,
Just douchebaggy, basically.
I think you'd have to vape a hell of a lot to get to that point.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't really know like what carbon footprint douchebaggery has, but
Seven.
do you know what has one of the biggest
Yeah,
effects
a
on
big
carbon
one.
footprints?
It's going to cause the next ice age,
Can-
actually.
Can any of you tell me what has one of the leading causes of carbon footprints right now? And
Carbon.
it's man-made.
Pure carbon?
Free market.
Nope. Bitcoin mining.
oh, fucking crypto, bro.
Cryptocurrency mining. The amount of heat that's being and carbon emissions that are being from these machines that mine them is overwhelming, and the electricity
What?
it uses is overwhelming. Yes.
Yeah, but there's not that many Bitcoin mining machines in the world compared to like the number of cows
Yeah,
that
but
are
the-
like.
that's
but the
methane.
people
Yeah,
That's,
but
that's
mining
methane,
it,
not carbon.
like
That's methane.
that's the real problem.
Bitcoin. That would be our luck as a society. We death by Bitcoin.
So there you go. If you want to see a dumpster fire, put me on with a crypto bro.
I don't get those
Wait
guys.
a minute. Stop right there. Crypto bros are a thing. Stop it.
Yeah.
Imraz.
There you go.
Yeah.
Crypto bros.
This is a statistic. 1 year.
Oh, yeah.
1 year of crypto mining. 1 year is equal to 1 million transatlantic flights.
Hold on. Okay, so I've
That's a lot.
learned of turfs. I've learned of. I'm writing this down.
Oh, turf's
Crypto
new today.
bros. I'm definitely going to make this happen, Imraz.
1
You will
year-
talk me through it.
1 year of crypto mining may equal a bajillion transatlantic flights, but it also equals like a million years of just fucking horrible douchebaggery.
I've only known one
Hey,
miner,
what is
so
an
I don't know.
HAES? You talked about them briefly. What is an HAES?
H what?
The healthy at any size.
Oh, that's Nate's thing.
I don't know what that.
Yeah.
I remember mentioning it, but
Oh,
I've never heard of it.
yeah, I mentioned that a while ago. Yeah, if you Google health at every size, this is one element, like it's like a group within the feminist movement that believes that you can be as fat as
I
you
don't
want.
think it's a feminist thing. That's just like a
Yeah,
body.
what is that? Again, this people relate the weirdest things. How does that relate to feminism?
I think he's saying that it
Because
is.
there's the reason it's connected to feminism is because feminists claim that the media tells them what kind of body type they're meant to have. So after that,
Aren't there fat men?
kind acceptance.
Yeah, I mean, like,
there are a few, but not many.
Really?
wait, what?
Obesity's.
No, I
Obesity's
think
not
I don't think
something
I don't
sexually.
think Nate's saying that there aren't fat men.
Yeah. He's not
Okay,
saying
I
that.
want-
There's
yeah.
definitely
I'm saying
way
there are-
more fat guys than there are fat women because
I don't
we
think
get
that's what
less
he's saying.
shit for it.
I-
What I'm saying is there are fat acceptance men, but for the most
Right.
part, from what I've seen, it's mostly women that are part of that
Yeah,
movement.
because we get more shit for it.
Right, I have to agree with that. I mean, generally speaking, I think a slightly overweight man is going to get far less judged than a slightly
But-
overweight woman. Would you
That's not
agree?
what he's saying. What he's saying is these people, they encourage you to get, and they say you can be just as
No,
healthy.
that's not true. They
No,
don't encourage it. They
Dude,
just say
But what I mean by that is they say that
they
by
say you're
encouraging, I mean,
fine the way
they're not,
you
like,
are.
telling
Sure,
you
but
to
300
help
pounds
yourself
overweight is
because-
not healthy. I mean, anybody
I
can
say that my milkshake.
But I don't think
all
that's
the boys to
I
the
don't
yard.
think that's a part of feminism. Like,
I
what
wouldn't
is
think so
what
either.
does
Well, I
being
don't-
healthy at any size have to do with equal rights between men and women.
Not a damn
I don't
thing.
know.
Because they want equality to have like bigger seats in airplanes and on buses, and they
But
don't have to.
there's other
But
problems with
that's
that.
not gender. It's like I don't get it. I don't.
But I'm more interested myself though in the fact that they make claims that you can still be healthy at 400 pounds because
Well,
that's what they
That
do.
doesn't seem right to me either. But I guess I just don't see that as
There's a veil of ignorance that goes along with a lot of these things, right? If
Well-
for somebody for having like say they want bigger seats like that, the way the veil of ignorance works, it doesn't matter what you're looking at. You can't look at it as a male or female that wants the seat. You're looking at a specific thing dealing with the size issue. So I don't know why you would specifically attach it to something that's unrelated, unless you're trying to carry your argument with somebody else, right? You like a writer or something. Oh, here's this other group, and let me just attach it with that. That's the problem that happened with Atheist Plus.
Well,
That's exactly what
You
happened.
can
to
look at
Atheist Plus.
Wikipedia. They have an article all about the movement and how it began and how there are actually different waves, kind of like feminism. There's up to a third wave right now.
Like
Actually,
feminism, but
There's
not
5 waves
feminism.
of feminism now, Nate.
No,
There's
but here
actually
I'm
up to a 5th
quoting
wave.
from
there's
the article.
fucking
There
I'm
is.
quoting from the article right here. In 1972, the feminist group, the Fat Underground, was formed. It began as a radical
The
shout
fuck you.
of
The F you.
NAAFA.
The F you. Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
you
Nate.
can pull that up and you want to look over that. This details like the history of fat acceptance and how it grew over time.
Pull up the FU people.
No pun intended.
I mean, listen, here's the thing. You can be a feminist and be a part of other movements. So, like, just because there happens to be a movement for fat acceptance that is led either by women, not necessarily feminists, just happen to be women, or by women who are feminists, doesn't mean it's a feminist movement.
But isn't that what happened when they try to combine
the
atheism
more
with
important thing
feminism?
about the thing is that this is an actual movement. Like this is an actual. There are
Like,
actually.
I would not consider myself part of that movement. Like, I
Sure,
actually
yeah,
just
yeah.
got into it this morning with someone about yelling at me for fat shaming Donald Trump. So.
Well, you're not even close to being fat, so you wouldn't qualify anyway.
Well, I think the question isn't whether or not everyone who's a feminist is also, a FU member, but is everyone who's an FU member also a feminist?
For the most part, yes, we see a
But
pattern
even
where a
if
lot of
that's
people in that group
true,
are.
I still
Then it would
say
be a subset. It would be a subset if they
Yeah.
base their ideology off of feminist values and identify as
well,
feminist.
if the second half of what you said is true, then yes. But it sounds to me like it's a body positivity movement, and it would feminism is about equal rights between men and women, not between fat
But
people and skinny people.
But that could stem from if you say it's not equal the way that people treat fat men versus fat women, and people shame women for being fat, but most
Is
dudes
that
just
part
like,
of-
yeah,
is
he's
that
just
part
a
of it?
juggernaut.
I don't know.
Is that
I think
part
we're all
of-
missing the important point, which is that they're trying to convince people that it's healthy to be 400 pounds. I think that should
Yeah,
be.
I can't get behind that.
Are they convincing people it's healthy to be that way, or are they
Yes.
convincing people that it's okay to be
No,
that way?
ask Nate.
It's a mixture of both. Okay, yeah, I'll go over. There's the fat acceptance movement, and then there's like an even more radical off branch called health at every size, and they kind of mishmash together to a degree. But the basic idea is that we should accept people even though they're obese. Now, I think that if you're obese, obviously you should not hate yourself. You shouldn't put yourself down, but you should identify that being fat is a problem because they're going to have negative health consequences because of that. But these people say, fuck all of that. It doesn't matter.
Or you should just talk to your doctor and figure out what's good for you. I mean,
A
I
lot
don't
of people will
but-
ignore what doctors
a lot
tell
of,
them.
But hang on, there's also things that affect society, like for example, like the seating on a plane. I'm sorry, but if you are that heavy and you can't fit in a type of seat that's designed for the average person, that's something that the airplane doesn't have to accommodate you for. Okay,
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
That's
But
not a
okay,
reasonable
but-
accommodation.
Just take up 2 seats.
And some people could purchase that if that would work. Now, not all seats are designed, even for a larger size person, for 2 seats. But sometimes that is what has to be, unfortunately.
I
Or the
think-
same thing.
I
How
think
about
all
this? How about
seats
this,
are
Kyle? Like,
technically
Yeah,
how
I mean,
about
I
like this? How about like this? When you go to a like Disneyland and you go on a roller coaster, right? Those seats cannot be designed to hold 2 people. It cannot happen. So no matter how large, if you're a certain size, it is a
Fucking
physical restriction.
discrimination.
And that's what they'll say, but it's clearly not, right? I mean, but
Well,
that's what
it's
they
a
think.
difference, though. It's a difference, though. I
It's a
think everybody
safety
should have the
issue.
right in traveling, though. Traveling's different from riding a roller coaster. Like, I don't think, you don't have the right to ride a roller coaster, but I think everybody has the right to travel. Ask any sovereign citizen. Like, they'll tell you that everybody has the right to travel. And
I don't know about that. I'm going to disagree with that.
Yeah,
one.
I'm not.
Prisoners don't
I
have
don't
the-
think that there are some people in other
I'm
countries
being
with
facetious.
bad ideologies who I don't think should be over here.
I'm being facetious. Obviously.
Well, and airlines too have a limitation on how much weight they can take on a plane. They have a limitation on,
If you
just
can't fit through the
space.
door,
If you're in one seat and you're taking up half of the two seats next to you and it's inconveniencing the other passengers, then it's not completely unreasonable for the airlines to say, like, look, this is inconveniencing other passengers. You do not fit in
Absolutely.
a seat, and your weight limit exceeds what we can put on a plane. We cannot put 500 people at your weight on this plane in addition to luggage.
Put them in the
still-
cargo
Like-
hold.
like, I guess the way I see it is like-
in the belly of the plane. Just put them in the cargo hold.
gotta fly.
I mean, the way I see it is like my brother is 6'7", and so like he has to fly first class because like he's just not comfortable, and nor is anyone next to him comfortable in a seat in coach, and like that sucks. Like he was born that way, like whatever, but he's not gonna like.
He was born
grab his
6'7".
body.
That
No, I mean, he was
impressive.
born to become. You know what I mean? Like he's not like, oh, the airline is discriminating against me for not not offering me a coach seat with enough leg room. Like he just is that size.
Hey, real quick, we had somebody ask on this, and I'm kind of curious too. Emers, did you happen to watch the episode with Jamie the other night? Was it last night?
No, I did
Dealing
not.
with difference between rights and liberties.
I did not see the episode, but
Okay. Well, I was just kind of curious where you stood on the whole. We don't. The Bill of Rights should be called the Bill of Liberties, and that we don't really. There's civil rights, and then there's rights that are bestowed to us by there's rights that's bestowed because we need to be protected. So it's like a civil right would be we have the right to have employment, we have the right to have housing, we have the right to be free of racial discrimination. But when there's some things like my right to vote, my right to free speech, those are not really rights; those are liberties.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I would agree with you in an existential sense, but I mean, the way the Bill of Rights is drafted is a freedom from document. It's a freedom from government infringement on those rights.
Hey, Jade said he had a question for quite some time now.
Oh, is that an old message or is that a new message? Jay, do you have a new message? Because I
From a while ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was from a while
Yeah,
ago.
it's a new one, but that's all good. Does anybody mind if I kind of change the subject for a second?
Go nuts.
Yeah.
Yes. We are on fat people right now.
We got from feminism to fat people. This is a great after show. We're gonna get
Well,
so
I
demonetized.
kind of have a question for Nate, and I want to open it up to everybody on here because the topic of his blackface video was brought up, and I did watch it during the time that the debate went down and the after show came up. So I kind of agree with Nate on this, and I just want to get your guys' take on it. Like, Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder didn't offend me, and when Eddie Murphy, does whiteface on SNL, or when Dave Chappelle did whiteface on his show, that didn't offend me. So I just kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on it and see if, like, I'm in the wrong here. Like, should it offend me that somebody does blackface? Like,
Imraz has head cocked, so let's go with
Jade,
her first.
are you white? Are you black? Or brown?
I was gonna say, you sound white.
I'm totally white. I'm super white.
Yeah.
I'm black.
Both my parents are black.
Wait, Odeon, are you black?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Odeon.
so I think maybe.
Odeon,
Nobody's
you're more
asking.
you're Caribbean though, right? I mean, you're from
Should
Caribbean.
I give a
Doesn't
recap
matter.
of what my
It
argument
does
is?
matter, man.
That's still.
I
Should I
give
give a
Odeon shit all the
recap
time
of-
about that.
Did you guys just
Yeah, go
assume my race?
Go ahead, Nate.
I
Go ahead,
was
Nate.
saying, should I give a recap of what my argument in the blackface video was? I'm not sure if everybody here is
Yeah.
familiar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please do, because I thought your argument was pretty good.
All right. So in that video, I asked the question, is blackface racist? And then I was saying it depends ultimately on the context of how that blackface is being used. So an example of blackface being used in a racist context would be something like a minstrel show where people were dressing up as a caricature of black people, trying to make them look dumb, just trying to make them look bad in general. That is obviously racist portrayals of black people. However, if you're trying to portray a racist character, be it, I'm sorry, if you're trying to portray a black character, be it from anime or a TV show or a real life person, you're just trying to look the part, trying to look like them, not trying to mock them, though, then in that situation, I would say that is not racist.
I agree with that.
Well, it's the same thing. Look at remember that flack where people were wearing like Hawaiian type of garb, and people were saying that there was cultural appropriation, it was racist. Look at racism. I think is something that a person is going to determine for themselves what they deem to be racist or not. Right? We take it as an affront. Right? You don't really you're not really racist to somebody where they want to take it to be racist or not. When you're not intending to be racist, even when people have been burned by using the N word, right? Which I find to be a very offensive word. I don't use it, even trying to explain about the word. I don't use it, but people have used it to try to explain about the word, and they've used the actual word. Now I think that's a bad idea, but of course, in a way to normalize it, I get that, right? When black people talk about that word, they use the actual word because they want to have a normativity for it. I totally understand that argument. Right? They want to make that word normalized. At least, well, they do.
You're not trying to normalize it.
They do try to normalize it. They try to own it, and they
No, it's ownership. It's ownership.
Okay. Maybe it shouldn't be saying normalize. Unless what I mean normalize is the fact that in society it's not a word that has that stigma attached to it any longer. Right? That's what
it's like how some women say cunt.
Yeah. It's so same thing. Like in Australia, that word is ubiquitous. Right? Doesn't have the negative connotation.
Cunt is a bad word.
Yeah.
Oh, Thomas.
He's Canadian. What the fuck does he know?
I'm not Canadian.
He's not Canadian.
I give him shit about that too. I know.
Yeah,
everybody thinks he's from Canada.
I'm not Oklahoman.
No, you're from. No,
Oklahoma.
actually, I know where you're from.
I'm kidding.
Nobody fucking knows where I'm from.
Oh yeah, you have it. I have it on your Facebook.
But Imraz, you were cocking your head this entire time. What is your thoughts on the blackface?
Well, I mean, historically, it certainly has some pretty problematic connotation. And I think that as a white person, it's just not up to me to decide whether it's offensive. I think if a black person finds blackface offensive, that they have the opportunity to decide whether it's offensive or not.
Right, that's what I said. They take affront or not, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I think if you want to be a white person who does blackface and you have a reason for it, like, I mean, you're entitled to do that, but also I think a black person is entitled to be like, that's fucking offensive.
Well, yeah, of course they can. I know that when I did that in my video at the very end, there were people that would be offended, but there are also black people who watch that video, and they were totally indifferent. I had a black guy. There's a YouTuber called That Guy T, who I made had a cameo as a joke at the end, saying, "Hey, I'm That Guy T, and I approve this message." Just to show.
Well, I guess my question would just be like, because I'm obviously not black. So
really,
like,
I
don't know. I don't have like a horse in this race, other than that I don't race. Other than that I don't, want people to feel marginalized. But like, what is the goal? I guess behind it would be my question. Like what are you trying to accomplish?
It's a mixture of different things. It's kind of an idea I've had floating in the back of my mind for a while, and just thought, why does everybody have this negative stigma towards something which in and of itself should not be viewed as negative? I think that's...
But why not, though? Because the historical context of it is like horrifically racist.
Yeah, we attach things to certain things, right? I mean, look at the Nazi symbol. One time, a similar symbol was used for like the
American
right?
Indians.
American Indians,
yeah,
right? So we attached something to these things, right? And blackface has a stigma because of how it was used historically. There's no question
look at
about
Tropic
that.
Thunder. Have you?
But yeah,
no, I don't find how. But okay,
with Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, of course, I love that movie. Love it. Great movie.
And that was blackface.
And by the way, I didn't even know that was Morton Downey. I didn't know that was Morton Downey until after I saw the movie.
Really?
I didn't recognize it. No, dude, he did a beautiful.
Odeon?
He did a great. Oh, dude, he was a master in that movie. That was brilliant acting. Brilliant acting.
So, Emraz, just out of curiosity, would it offend you if a comedian dressed up as a woman?
No, but I don't think that there's a historical context associated with dressing up as a woman in order to
mock women.
But if I wanted to go,
in fact, back in Shakespeare's day, men had to play women's part because women weren't allowed to.
Right.
Yeah, because women weren't fucking allowed.
But if my child, if my child who wants to go trick or treating, which she probably will stop doing here soon. She's getting at that age. But if she wanted to be like the, I don't know, a black, but I know it's a character. I think it's Black Panther, but that's a male character. But it doesn't matter. Let's say she did want to go to Black Panther. She's allowed to, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not. There's no racial overtone. Matter of fact, my daughter is so not
Oh, that's
racist.
such a tricky area, though.
But this is how kids like are sometimes when they're very like my daughter's very sweet and at the time very naive. But she started a YouTube channel, and the name of the channel was The White Chicks. And I was like, I say, honey, that's not. She's no offense
That's
to
actually
it,
a good
right?
movie.
Yeah, no offense to it, but I'm like, people can probably take that wrong, and she realized it. But doesn't have a racist bone in her body. She doesn't even understand the argument. She doesn't understand why there are people that give a shit about whether you're white, black, purple, gray, blue. She doesn't even understand the argument. I think that's sweet that she doesn't, because unfortunately,
Emraz, I
eventually
think
she
it's just
will.
a birth.
What?
I think that Emraz is a birth. She's a blackface exclusionary radical feminist.
There you go.
I don't think I'm with Nate on this one in the fact that I think there's certain context that it's not racist.
Right.
However, people that dress up like that for Halloween, I fear that it just sends the message that you might be, whether you are or you are not. I think that as a society, it's frowned upon, so you may get labeled as something you don't want to by doing that. I think there's an unintended consequence by
Sure,
by doing
but do you remember during the talk with Dr. Misha Griffith that she was talking about Czechoslovakia and they would use the symbol, the Nazi symbol, on the encroachment from the encroachment from the Russians. They were coming in and they were putting that on their tanks and their military vehicles to show that they were pretty much emulating what the Nazis were doing by trying to take over Czechoslovakia. At that time, that symbol was not appropriation. They were not using it to promote Nazism. They're not using it to promote genocide or racial superiority. They were using it to show that these people were doing something that was horrifically motivated. And so at that time, they were taking ownership of that symbol. So again, it depends what you use these things for, right? You can't, I don't think there's no objective standard by which you say this symbol means this, blackface means this. As Emma has pointed out, these things are because of cultural and historical relevancy. That's why we assign these things the way we do. We have these visceral feelings for them. That's it.
Nate, I haven't seen the video yet, but did you actually go blackface?
At the very end, yes. Like for 5 seconds, I had blackface on my face, and yeah, just kind of a way to close the video out. But my question would be,
I can't wait to see.
My question would be, why does the historical context matter? That's just guilt by association. Just because in that context it was obviously racist doesn't mean in the current context it's also racist.
Oh, that's such a fucked up argument.
I don't think it's guilt by association. I think that's the wrong fallacy to use. What it would be more is, look at we again have these cultural things that give us visceral reactions. It's just the way we're humans. That's all.
So do you think that you can be unintentionally offensive and that you should be held accountable for it?
Yes.
So like, let's say that you put on a mud mask, okay, and you go outside. Yeah, it looks like blackface, but it's literally like one of those face masks for like.
Those are amazing.
Acne.
Yes, they are.
So if you put on a mud mask and you go outside and someone sees you and thinks that you're doing blackface and gets offended and responds angrily, are you responsible for that?
Yes. Yeah, to some degree. Yeah. Look, if you walk into a black church with that,
this mask just deserves what's coming.
Yeah, if you walk into a black church with that face on and you're just like, oh, I'm just trying to be stringent,
what if you don't?
My pores need it.
Know better.
Well, then after they tell you,
natural selection. Then.
Yeah, first they're gonna think you're an idiot, right?
Oh,
that's
but
the first
why are you
reaction.
wearing a blackhead mask into a black church? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like this whole situation.
Yeah.
Well, okay, not into a black church, but let's say that you're in a college dorm. Let's say you're in a college dorm and you walk outside to get your pizza out of the microwave.
Then I don't think anybody. Nobody's gonna care.
Where are you?
Yeah, where are you?
Where are you?
Situational awareness.
And what is your reaction?
Yeah,
okay, so like. Where are you? I'm in my dorm. Like, I'm just loafing around. Like, let me put my face mask on. I'm in a black church. Maybe I shouldn't be wearing a blackhead mask.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, okay.
Situations matter.
Blackhead mask on. That's
okay.
I want to hear the story.
Already. And then,
no, but my point.
Semi-racist already. But then,
my point though is,
how do you react? So, like, someone says, "I'm offended by this." If your reaction is like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't realize that. Let me apologize." Then, okay. Then after that point, then don't do it again. And I feel like, Okay.
And people need to move on the fuck on, though. They keep on berating people even when they apologize. That's when I get.
Well,
And my point is that
let Thomas ask
intentions-
his question his follow-up question real quick.
My point is that intentions matter, and I talk to so many people
Yes.
who will accuse others and throw them under the bus of doing something horribly offensive that they didn't even realize was taboo.
Yeah, no.
And
Dude, I agree
I
with you.
think as a society, we have to come to a point where we can acknowledge, and I see this a lot too with, having come from the creationist background, where, yeah, I give a lot of shit to creationists, and rightfully so, because they say some dumb things and some offensive things, but there's also a lot of clueless old people who just don't realize how rapidly society has changed, and sometimes they'll say something with the best of intentions that maybe wasn't offensive 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
I'll give you a
But how do
perfect
you know
example.
the difference, though, Thomas, when somebody is just doesn't know any better, and when somebody is being intentionally.
Well, I think that's where we need to
No,
have
that's
enough
an
discretion
empathy.
to
That's an
read-
empathy thing.
to be able to read the context and to see, like, is this person like being friendly and nice, and then just says something that is like, oh shit, like, I can't believe they said that, but like they didn't know any better.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example. Do you guys remember back when Justine Seiko, Seiko, I think it's pronounced last name, Seiko, she had tweeted something along the lines of, I'm going to Africa. I hope I don't get AIDS. Then she tweeted something like, oh, just kidding, I'm white.
What?
Yeah, she said, hope I don't get. She said she had a huge following, massive following, CEO of a corporation.
Oh my
I think.
God, Karen, you can't just ask people why they're white.
Massive
at
following.
At the time, I don't think that she did have a massive following. Like, she just
That's right. At the time, okay, right. At the time, okay.
And the tweet destroyed her.
It was
life.
2012. She had the tweet, right? She didn't have a big following, and she just said, "Hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding. I'm white." Right? And 5 years later, 6 years later, 7 years later, whatever it was, somebody had found it and just ruined her career. Although she's coming back now, I guess. But it was an innocuous thing that she's likes to be a comedian, and wasn't trying to be offensive. But of course, there's obviously ways of taking that very, very offensively. Would you not say?
That's epically offensive.
I don't really know, like, what.
Not as a joke.
Like,
You're a comedian. Look at people that are comedians say stupid.
Is that funny though? I don't know.
For a comedian, it would be.
Is she trying to?
Like, what things are funnier for comedians than they are for regular?
Yeah,
people?
actually, I think that comedy really has no line of demarcation for the most part.
In theory, it doesn't.
Depends. Is she saying?
If she was actually a comedian, we would all think it was funny.
Is she saying it to make a statement that, like, oh man, everyone in Africa is like, they're just a bunch of AIDS-ridden filth, or is she saying it to be like, why is there such a discrepancy between, like,
she was trying to point out the discrepancy. She was not. I when I remember looking into it, she wasn't trying to say that black people or something like that in Africa, high propensity to have sex or procreation and being promiscuous and having AIDS. I think she really tried. I think she really did try to bring awareness at the time, but she just did it really badly.
Cluelessly.
Yeah.
Now, there's other ways to do that.
Yeah, but it shouldn't.
I don't buy that. That seems like an after explanation.
Yeah,
to me.
But should it either way? Should it really ruin someone's entire life and career that they did?
No, I don't think.
No,
I think people take.
I think if she was genuinely sorry, no.
Yeah, I think people like to be offended, though. There are some people, they make their whole entire career, and this happens on YouTube, by being offended.
But there should be a point, though. There, like
YouTube,
for example, Donald Trump, right?
We're on Twitter. You got to follow him on Twitter.
He passed the point of offending so many people that he's out by now. But yet his is opposite. His keeps increasing his numbers. Like, they keep going up, and up. The man can't say anything wrong. So I think it depends on the person. There's some people that people are willing to forgive more, more freely. And there are some people that give off a vibe where it's just like, you're one time and you're done. So I think it depends on the person and, like, the message that they have.
Adam friended in the live chat. He says, he knows the story. So he maybe on your channel, Adam, when you get a chance, maybe revisit that story, because it's been a while since I've heard that story. But I just remember that she tweeted out that, and it was years ago, and it came back a bitter in the ass. So he says we're butchering that story. So maybe he might talk about that later on his channel.
Are you also familiar with Donglegate?
Donglegate.
Yeah, this happened like way back in 2012, where there were a group of men at some kind of, I believe, tech convention, and one of the guys made some joke about dongles, and dongle is the thing at the end of your flash drive, the dongle that goes inside the computer, and he made like some sexual innuendo while mentioning dongles, and then some woman overheard their conversation. She had no part of it, never mentioned in their conversation, but she tweeted about their dongle joke and got the guys into so much trouble.
See, that's the shit that I hate.
I bet she was a
honestly.
feminist.
Yeah,
Guys.
that's a big dongle right there.
Don't dangle your dongle on the camera.
I'm kidding, Imraz. I love you. I'm kidding.
My little dongle.
But that's what I'm saying. People do want to make issues about certain things, and I just get tired of that kind of crap.
Dongle gate.
Especially when that's more what I consider a dongle right there. Not what you had, Thomas. That's a dongle.
This is a big dongle, Thomas. This is what a real dongle looks like.
Yeah, sorry, Thomas.
It's
dongle.
Not how big your dongle is.
No, I don't call that a dongle. Is it though? I'm being serious. I'm being serious.
It's the size.
I don't call that a dongle though. I mean, I call what Kyle has a dongle. Now, am I wrong? Do they consider that to be a dongle on the USB?
Nobody calls them
Do I
dongle.
have a dongle? Like what?
No, I'm really curious.
Nobody uses the word dongle.
No, they
one.
do.
Is that,
They do. But does that end part on the USB that you're showing, Nate, is that actually considered to be a dongle too?
This is a dongle.
Yeah,
That's a
I
dongle,
believe
right.
the metal part of the end is called a
I-
All
dongle.
right, I did not know that, and I've worked with USB a very long time, so good to know.
Check out.
You
Now that's a
work with
dongle,
USB?
yeah,
What?
baby.
Whoa.
My big black.
Big black dongle.
That's a Ron Jeremy dongle. Mandingo dongle.
Damn.
Yeah, I worked in cellular for a long
That's a
time. Can
BBD.
confirm that's called a dongle.
Okay.
That's great that it was black.
And
when you made
confirmed
it black.
dongle.
Awesome.
Okay.
That's a BBD if I've ever seen one.
That was classic.
Unsolicited dongle pic.
We have all these dongles on camera.
Jamie,
Jammy! Are you gonna show your dongle too?
welcome to the party.
And,
Yeah,
I,
we're
and
all
I hope you
flexing
watch the
on
beginning of that before you take out anything else other than a USB. Kyle's
We're
like,
so
no, I'm not.
offended.
Stop.
dongle. You're so offensive.
There's also Shirtgate that happened a while ago.
Just
where a
so you
guy
guys
had
should know, I have
sexual-
a
What is shirt
3-port
gate?
USB
Shirt gate.
plug.
You have a 3.0.
What is shirt gate?
Shirtgate was where this one guy who I believe landed some kind of spacecraft on Mars or on some other planet.
Have you been watching InfoWars? What?
No, this is an actual thing that happened. He had this like very sexualized button-up shirt on. It had women on it, and then this caused a whole bunch of controversy, saying,
he was
"No,
a
it doesn't matter
NASA.
if you." What?
He was a NASA employee.
Yeah, and he was interviewed while wearing the sexualized
Okay,
shirt that a
okay.
female friend gave him.
I'm like,
And-
wait,
I don't,
what?
okay, I don't get this. I don't get this. Someone explain this to me. There are feminists out there, the radicalized feminists out there, they'll mark on their body things like "my body, my vagina," but you can't wear a sexualized shirt if you're a male.
Apparently not.
I don't even know what a sexualized shirt is.
He
Get
had
ready
a
to show you.
scantily clad woman on his shirt, and they were saying that it was objectifying her, and that this guy shouldn't have had it on when doing a conference.
See,
And
I-
admittedly,
Oh God, it's like one of those old tacky like
Yeah,
like your,
that's
your
nothing.
weird uncle gets
Yeah,
from
I remember
Myrtle
this.
Beach.
I remember this. I remember this exact shirt.
No, okay, I can explain this.
it
Okay,
was a bit tasteless.
so if I'm a woman and I'm living in my own body and I decide to wear what I want on it, that's cool.
Oh,
If
let me
you're
stop
a
you right there,
man,
Imraz.
my body
Imraz, let me stop
on
you there.
you.
Are there
Hang on,
women
hold
that
on.
don't live in their own bodies?
Yeah, how many women you know like that don't live in their
Well,
own body?
whoever those people from the Skype chat, I don't know.
I want to
But-
hear this out here, though,
That's
guys.
true.
But what I mean is, if I am the subject, I'm the living being, I can choose what to put on my own body. If you are a man wearing my body on you, that's different.
But
Well, but it's your photo. Oh, yeah, I mean, I would understand if you're like your photo, you send a photo to your boyfriend and it's scantily clad or whatever, and they make a shirt out of it. I would have an
but
issue
if it's
with
a
that.
model that poses for shirts,
It's an illustration. It isn't a real person.
no.
Yeah, it wasn't even a real photo.
Like,
Yeah, his
just
friend
think
made
the
him that
difference-
shirt, from what I understand.
Like
It's
I,
wrong.
personally, I'm not offended by the shirt. I think it's a little bit like weird to wear.
Being tasteless,
tacky.
yeah,
Tacky.
tacky and tasteless doesn't
But-
mean
Not
offensive.
work attire for sure.
But it wouldn't be like I would just be like, "Whoa, what a fucking douche in this shitty shirt." But like, I just think, I guess if I were trying to speak for those who felt that it was objectifying, the answer would be that like a woman can decide if she wants to be dressed how she is, but like you shouldn't be wearing her body on your body. But at the same time, I also accept the response of this is a person who has clearly licensed these photos for this purpose.
Sure.
So, I mean, I also accept that argument. Like I guess what I'm
It's
saying
drawing,
is
too.
I
It's
personally would not have made the argument. I'm just trying to speak for those who.
Yeah, it's a drawing.
Well,
but
if it had been a bunch of fat women on the shirt, then it would have been fat acceptance. It would have been okay.
They thought they may be mocking fat people.
can we
You
all
can't
agree?
win.
Can we all agree here today that there's just way too many things people are getting pissed off at now,
Yes.
and it's almost getting ridiculous.
Well, that's what the whole thing. I remember Brittany. By the way, I invited Brittany if she wanted to come on. She's in live chat. But remember the whole thing on intersectionality, and intersectionality is literally predicated on who's got the biggest amount of persecution. It's persecution and things against privilege, right? So it's persecution against privilege. That's all it's based upon. So they have to find something to go out and be offended by. It seems to
Well,
me.
to me, here's the reality though that people I don't think realize. Everybody's going to the extremes. They're leaving the middle, where it's nice and comfortable, and they're going to the extremes where you're either too much this or too much that. And these people spend so much time throwing darts at each other that they stop talking. And when you get people who you think, like tonight, between Nate and Imraz, would go at each other's throats and be completely divisive on the issue, when you get to talking, you actually agree on a lot more things than you disagree on. And
Yeah,
so I
same
think
thing with Brittany and Sargon.
if people stopped getting so fucking pissed off and offended at everything and just had a conversation about the thing that they were getting ready to get, all huffy and puffy about and go start a new movement, like these words, these turfs, these crypto bros and the HAES and incels, like
You forgot Swerves.
What is what?
Swerves.
What is the swerve?
A
What is
swerve.
that?
A
Swerve.
sex worker, exclusionary, radical feminist.
Oh my god.
Dwarfs.
They're horrible.
Kyle,
They're also
Yes.
horrible.
So they're
Yes,
wait,
yes,
so they're
Thomas.
like porn stars that are radicalized feminists, and they're other. Is there like
No, they exclude. They believe that sex work marginalizes women.
Whoa,
and
wait a minute here. To me, I would think that a sex worker probably has more empowerment than anybody.
Well,
hold on.
I
Before we move
personally
into that,
embrace
before we
sex
move into
workers,
that,
but
before we move into that category, Thomas, you were going to ask me something about.
Well, I was just going to say, like, you're talking about how, we can have these conversations and meet somewhere in the middle. But the problem is that the loudest voices get the most media attention. And they're the
Yeah.
ones that people want to have in their newsfeed because it's like,
Sure.
it pulls the eyeballs. And
Yeah.
if those are the loudest voices, they're going to drown out the moderates. They're going to
Sure.
drown out the conversations. Like, these aren't even going to be heard.
No.
You're
But
right.
that doesn't mean that they aren't happening by the millions. That doesn't mean that that's not the majority of the population. People just take sides because they are drawn towards one extreme or the other because that's all that
That is
they're
true.
hearing.
I agree.
I say all the time.
problem is we're splitting it. Like you'll get a group that splits off into different factions, and then those factions split off into different factions, and those factions split off into different factions, and before long, you have people in one faction over here fighting with the people of the same mission and the same
West Side, East Side
cause,
furries, baby.
fighting each other. Yeah, there's the East Side, West Side furries now.
Yeah.
The furry
Well,
community.
I also think there's two things happening at once. There's people who are drawing arbitrary lines that don't need to be drawn because they can't fucking read and comprehend or communicate. And then the second is that you have people who are being disingenuous about what their cause is.
Yeah.
So you have people who are like, well, I stand for this, but really they're just anti that.
Well, personally, I'm a FERF.
Oh, what is? Please.
A furry
Indulge
exclusionary
us.
radical feminist.
Oh my god.
Wait,
Oh my
what?
God.
Furry exclusionary radical feminist.
A furf.
It's fucked up, man.
You know what though? You say that, but that's probably actually a thing. I guarantee you, if I Google that,
It's like
right
I'm all for women's rights unless they're like
Unless it's a raccoon. Okay, I see you. Whatever.
Well, but
now. Hold on, Thomas, what did you say that was? A furry what?
A furry exclusionary radical feminist.
The thing is that though, all of us, and generally most of the people you'll find in the skeptic community, the great debate community, and other types of related types of communities that we all deal with, most people gender fall in a small range, a moderate, right? And you have people on the extremes of those being moderate, but they don't fall out to the point where they're outliers, to their point where they're radical. You don't have like the Dean Esmes. We don't
Oh
associate
my god!
with them.
Oh my god!
Is it a real thing?
Furfs are a thing.
What?
Furfs are a thing. Read that.
Oh
It's
my.
Did you know that?
Furry
No,
Thomas?
that can't
radical
be-
feminist.
you
I
fucking
could have
made
sworn.
that up.
I could
I
have
Make
sworn.
the
told you.
website right now.
I told you shit has gotten that bad that you cannot even make up.
Okay. I am validating this for my
ridiculous
fucking
group
self.
without it
goddamn.
actually being a thing now. The headline is to this is furry exclusionary radical feminist magic players debating
Magic players?
Yes, Magic
Like
the Gathering.
Dungeons and Dragons for feminists? What
Magic
the
the Gathering is a card game.
Yeah.
No,
love
I know what
love
Magic is.
Oh, wait, here's the full title. Furry, exclusionary, radical feminists, Magic players are debating the nature of freedom and pornography. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Why is that on happening in this show?
How do I
So
make
insular.
Oh, I
Not
so
only do I have to be a feminist, I have to be radical.
God,
I have
I've
to be
gotta be
very
a fly on the
exclusionary.
wall
I have
for
to
that.
play Magic the Gathering. I have to debate pornography. There's so many layers.
One commenter put under this
everyone.
under this
Like
thread
the
they
top
said
has stopped spinning. The top has stopped spinning.
under one of these things a commenter said, what is life now?
Wait. There's another one too. I can't pronounce this. It's FWERF. You know what that is? Furry winking, exclusionary radical feminist.
Well, that's just a given. That's a given. Like,
What the fuck is a furry winking, exclusionary
this?
radical
Jerking off
feminist?
raccoon? I don't need
This
that.
is life now. Thomas thought he was
You're
creating
against
something that was
masturbating
outrageous and could not
I don't
even
need
close.
masturbating raccoons and feminism.
What you're telling me is that this group that we thought that I had just completely come up with out of thin air.
I'm actually supportive of excluding that.
I'm not even making this shit up. Furry winking, exclusionary radical feminist.
You're telling me that firms have a sub.
I'm with JR on this. We may actually need alien species.
No,
No, 'cause
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I
Nate
fully believe
created
that-
all these websites. This is all Nate.
I am not making this
Listen.
shit up.
This is
I'm
just
so
Nate
not.
trolling.
We're never
all
going to be
the-
visited by alien life because they hovered over this planet and went, oh fuck, no, we're out of here.
Jesus,
Oh,
I should make a video about
you've
this.
got to. So
You
here's,
should.
here's it is. So this
My
recap.
God, I can't believe this.
Thomas had something that was just so far out there to be a radical group cannot possibly existed. Not only do they exist, they had a motherfucking subgroup.
I felt it in me to Google this. I have been on here long enough to know that this could not be something that has not been done enough.
This would have been the best rum and coke ever night, probably. By the way, we should have been a rum and coke night.
Oh,
Oh God. I might have to have a rum and coke night tomorrow because of this.
Oh
This
my
is going to be
God.
definitely brought up. You guys, Emira's, you know what my rum and coke nights are? Have you? Rum and coke night started off being a thing I did on my channel, Steve McRae channel, that we were just
You
basically.
mean a Cuba Libre?
What?
Just being a bit short.
So we would actually just drink and then make fun of flat earthers by try to find flat earthers to have them come on. That's kind of moved by the wayside because now we have non-sequitur and we get to come on here, so we can fuck.
You can
with
make
them
fun
on
of them here.
Yeah, so it's kind of migrated to other things, but basically it's just a bunch of people getting drunk and just it's hilarious, absolutely
like,
hilarious.
That's been me this entire time.
So this would have been a good rum and coke.
I think this is a good note to end on because we've been going for about 3 hours.
Yeah,
and
I
I don't think we're going to be able to outdo Furfs. I really don't. I think that
Works.
Hey,
All right,
Imraz,
promote your channels and
yes.
Imraz, do you
Tom.
have a channel or just a Twitter handle?
yeah, promote shit.
I don't. This was my YouTube debut.
This is your debut?
Yeah.
Non-sequitur divergenized her. Yes.
Nice.
Jamie, you came on right as we're closing.
They popped your YouTube cherry.
Put
You
the
could say
YouTube
that.
in you.
I don't know. I think I had a YouTube tampon one time, but
Did they call it RedTube?
Oh, this
Let's
is getting,
see.
just getting out of hand. Out of hand.
YouTube.
Let's see if
YouTube
there's
Red.
a YouTube Cherry Poppers group.
Yeah, someone's find us a furf, by the way. People want us to have a rum and coke night. We're not gonna be tonight.
No, actually, I'm definitely gonna tweet about that.
The
Yeah.
not a furf, a furf or whatever.
Yeah, if you could find definitely find
Subgroup.
a furry winking exclusionary radical feminist or transvestite,
feel
whatever the
like
hell they
most-
are anymore. Just find me one of them.
I feel
don't
like
have to
most
put your
furfs
history.
would also be furfs.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like I'm actually a fwerf. Like I'm actually for. Like I don't need a
Stop it,
masturbating.
Imraz. Somebody cut her mic.
Yeah.
She's ruining her YouTube career.
Make it
before
stop
even-
before. Yeah,
Cut
we
her
want
mic.
we want her to keep her Twitter followers. So, Amaris, why don't you go first? Throw out your Twitter information. If you want to know who you are on Twitter, you want to give that out.
You
If not, I
can find
understand
me
why.
you can find me on Twitter at Emraz. If you're interested in seeing me deny hating men and thinking that all men are rapists multiple times a day, a large part of what I do. Otherwise, I talk about feminism and try to engage people with integrity and respect.
Like she did on our last hangout.
You
with
said
Nate.
that you were
So
you were a documentary fan in our podcast. Just before we close
I
out,
am.
so am I. What's your favorite documentary?
Hot coffee.
I will have to check that one out.
It's very good.
I've never heard of it, so
it's about, well,
don't spoil it. No spoilers.
Just check it out.
I'll just watch it on your recommendation. I the other day Kyle recommended a show to me, Wentworth, and I'm in 7 episodes in, and it's very good. But I took about I trust people when they recommend stuff to me.
Jamie, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. I just got your mess. I'm sorry, I wasn't checking my phone. I was dealing with the furfs, but now that we've got you on there, you can go ahead and speak now. I think you're coming through loud and clear.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't want to disturb, and I realized you guys were trying to close. I'll be very quick.
No,
I just
Steve,
I just wanted to clarify what Steve was trying to say earlier, just in case somebody's watching and there's confusion here. But first off, I thought the show was great tonight. Love the fact that the conversation could be had civilly and both sides could be heard clearly. I thought that was wonderful for both parties. But Emraz, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was on the show last night, and I just want to clarify what Steve was saying, so you didn't think I'm a nut job.
like everybody else does.
What I was the simple version of that 2-hour show is rights deal with protected classes, but liberties deal with individual freedom. So not at any time was I advocating that people should actually call the Bill of Rights the Bill of Liberties. It's a well-accepted colloquial term. I get that. But what I'm getting at specifically is when people say things like healthcare is a liberty, but owning a gun is a right, when the Supreme Court literally ruled the exact opposite. When the Obamacare was brought to them, they said healthcare should be declared under Equal Protection Clause of 14th Amendment because it should have no discrimination. But then when McDonald incorporated the Second Amendment, they said, hey, look, it can be regulated, but it's limited as to how much the government can infringe. So that's what I was saying, is it's an enumerated liberty through the Bill of Rights in the sense, as you pointed out, it's all about limiting the government through the Bill of Rights. But so my point was, there's lots of times when people say, this is my right, and they're actually, if they were to proceed through it in court, it would be handled as an actual liberty. And then there's other times when people go, that's not a right at all, and it actually is a right.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah, that's all I was trying to say.
Yeah, I think everybody agrees with you except for Nate. I think Nate's the only, not this Nate, not Nate.
Okay.
A different Nate. Forgot that.
What kind of law do you practice, Imraz?
I'm in banking.
All
right, so go ahead and throw your stuff out there, and also why don't you throw out one recommendation, because Emerez pointed out hot coffee for her. Want to recommend that?
My favorite documentary is probably Dear Zachary. It's a documentary that came out around, I think, 2008, and it details like this murder mystery where this guy's son was taken in by the woman that murdered the boy's father.
It doesn't have to be a documentary, just any kind of show or even a book. Just something to recommend something. And Nate, where do they find you, Nate, if they haven't figured it out already?
Oh, yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube under the name NateTalksToYou.
Go. All right, Thomas, why don't you go next?
So I have a show called Holy Kool-Aid where I take complicated ideas in science, religion, and philosophy, and I try to break them down in laser-focused animated form. And you can find that at Holy Kool-Aid on YouTube. I also have a podcast called The Here and How with Rachel Oates and Rationality Rules, where we dive into big ideas and try to explore the past and hope to create a brighter future. And I'm also on Twitter at Holy Kool-Aid, holykool-aid.com. I'm building a couple of other websites as well that are set to premiere in the next month or so. But yeah, my favorite documentary, I'd have to go with either Saving Capitalism with Robert Wright.
Love that.
Or Waiting for Superman, which is about the education system.
Okay. And by the way, if you haven't guys checked out Rachel Oates and Rationality Rules, check them out too. They're just amazing. Jade or anything you want to push? Or I was going to do Jamie last, but
okay. Jade or Odeon?
I don't have anything to plug. I just want to say thanks for letting me come in and hang out with you guys. It's been really cool. Of course, Flat Earth brought me here, but you guys are awesome, and I've enjoyed hanging out with you guys for the last couple months. Very cool to be here. Amraz and Nate, you've earned a new fan, both of you. I'm going to go pull you both up on Twitter. I love this civil discourse. Nobody was at each other's throats. I was expecting a dumpster fire.
Yeah, we were hoping. Whatever.
I was pleasantly surprised that we didn't get that. Documentaries, I have two to recommend. First is Where to Invade Next by Michael Moore. He basically goes over a bunch of different ideologies and political movements in other countries that actually kind of started in America and how we need to bring those back. And to recommend something different, I'm a big video gamer, so King of Kong, Fistful of Quarters. If you haven't seen it, check it out. One man's quest to get the Donkey Kong record and the forces that act against him. It's very good.
Awesome.
You mean the donkey dongle?
Donkey Dong.
Odian, you got anything? Nope, I guess not. Jamie.
Yeah.
Anything you want to do before we
Well,
get
I'm going to be a little bit. I'm gonna go against the grain tonight. I'm going to recommend a book, and that is the.
People read? What's the book? Wait, is that the thing with like paper and like these things that they're binded in and stuff that got writing on it?
Yeah. It's how people recorded things before keyboards.
I heard that the last one burned down in the Lighthouse of Alexandria.
Yeah,
stop that crazy. The great library.
There's no life before Wi-Fi.
That the Christians didn't burn down.
All right, I'm half lying here because the reality is you can get this thing on a Kindle, so it's technically it's e-ink, you know. But no, I just finished the Alan Greenspan biography, which is a little bit of an older book, but I got to tell you, it was amazing the approach that guy used on economy issues. I almost wish there were some people today that would follow the same discretion.
What the fuck? Alan Greenspan caused the financial crisis. Are you crazy?
We're about to start another hour-long.
Yeah, it's next time, part 2.
You literally admitted it.
Yeah.
Like what?
Oh, no.
Not controversial at all.
Oh no.
It's obviously late night. I was trying to make a joke there, but okay. Anyways, but anyways, no. The channel I'll give a plug on tonight is Donut Operator.
Oh yeah, good. That's good.
Yeah,
that's a good channel. I like Donut Operator.
People want to get
Mine's gonna be my documentary is anything by Oliver Stone. I think he is phenomenal in what he does. So you can't go wrong with anything that he does. And for a book, I would say The Alchemist.
Oh, that's a great book.
Changed my life. If you haven't read it, go read it.
Can I give a book? Can I?
Yeah,
I have 2 books. Wait,
Sure.
Both of these are on Audible. I'm an Audible person. I don't know if you guys are into that, but 2 books that I think are really accessible, and both are short on Audible. The abridged versions are How Not to Be a Boy, which is new, and that deals with and it's I know like the title is like super cliche for a feminist to recommend, but the whole point of the book is about how masculinity is portrayed and how different the world would be if it wasn't handled the way that it is. And it's not necessarily that I take issue with masculinity. I think it's just a really interesting book. Like it's an interesting perspective. It was one of those ones that when I finished it, I was like, wow, that's a lot of stuff I had never thought about. And then the second one, which I would highly recommend, is another cliche feminist title, but it's called Men Say Things to Me by Rebecca Solnit. And it is a collection of essays. It's like 3 hours total on Audible, and it is awesome. She's
such a feminist.
Writer.
Awesome. Well, I'm gonna be a little bit more just like blasé because I don't really get into these really critical books that often. But I'll tell you, I'm going to tell you books that I enjoy and things that I enjoy. A documentary that I really liked Super Size Me by Morgan Spurlock. I enjoyed that documentary. It was lighthearted. It had a lot to say, and it's good. It was just a good documentary.
Have you watched Wentworth yet, Steve?
Well, you must have missed it because I was just telling Emrys earlier that I'm on the 7th episode of Wentworth and I like it. I took
it's
his recommendation
it's the best show ever.
and it's really good. That's why I wanted to do this whole recommendation thing because we don't get a lot of good recommendations. And Kyle, I was looking for something to kind of binge watch, so he recommended that. So far it's really good to binge watch, but I stopped at the 7th because I had other things.
Has anybody else in here seen Wentworth?
It's really good. It's kind of like Orange is the New Black, only a hardcore version from over.
Yeah, it's the real version of
from
Orange is the
across
New
the
Black.
pond.
It's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Which, by the way, I love that show, Orange is the New Black, but that's not gonna be one I recommend. Although go watch it. It's fucking hilarious and awesome.
We sound like Oprah's book club instead of non-sequitur.
We might be doing stuff like that. I don't
Like,
know.
are we supposed to be fighting? I don't get it.
But my favorite book of all time is
It's against
actually
everything we stand for.
Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Lee Hyland. If you really just want a brilliant book, that book is a masterpiece. But for like a show, go watch. If you want to binge watch something, go watch Killjoys. If you haven't watched Killjoys or heard of that, it is really just an amazingly well produced, good show. It's funny, well written. If you've never heard it before, it's one of those shows that you say, "Hey, give me a show I've never heard of before that I probably should have heard of and I should go watch." It's Killjoys. It's awesome. And by the way, to anybody who watches the video afterwards, why I don't know why you would want to, but if you did, let us know if you actually watched any of these things that anybody's recommended and what you thought of it. I think that's important. We get
Or
feedback.
don't, because we really honestly don't care.
Yeah, that probably not. And Rum and Coke night tomorrow night. Wait, tomorrow's what's tomorrow?
Friday.
Tomorrow's Friday, not Friday. Saturday I'll do a Rum and Coke night. So be there. And good night, all.
I do vagina Twitter on Saturdays.
Ooh,
Vagina Twitter.
that might have to be
Yeah.
incorporated in our Rum and Coke night.
Should we call it? Should we call it a twatter?
That's hilarious.
I'm done. Good night.